Blah. Hey now, welcome to tonight's show. We have something a little different than what we normally do here on the channel. You could even say that it is a crazy experiment gone awry, in the sense that we didn't intend for this to be a podcast, but it just sort of turned into one. It's also important to mention that this conversation is based on a previous conversation that Bob and I had on this channel when we were supposed to be discussing WandaVision. So go seek that out if you want to hear us, just sort of sniffing each other out as we were discussing DC and Marvel and all sorts of stuff. It actually, so what you are about to hear is a back and forth conversation in Facebook Messenger using the audio app, the audio feature, whatever, where you can record an audio message. And over a period of, I want to say, maybe weeks, it had to have been weeks, probably about a month or something. Bob Rose, who's on here from time to time, I guess we can kind of call him a guest correspondent. I mean, he always pops in from time to time. Bob Rose and I were talking about Batman as it related initially, or it was brought on by Bob's other podcast that he does with Jamie Nash and Jimmy George. They do a script. They break down scripts. It's called Writer's Blockbuster Podcast. I talk about it from time to time. I am a big fan of this podcast because I'm a screenwriter too, and listening to these three guys who really understand story and really understand movie making and movie writing, whatever, it really sort of opens my mind about the process. And they were covering the Batman, the new one with Robert Pattinson, directed by the brilliant Matt Reeves, who did all those wonderful Planet of the Apes films. And they were talking initially, I think they were talking about the spectrum of tone and where the Batman sits on it, because Batman, I'm not even going to explain it because we go so in depth on this stuff that there's nothing for me to explain in that regard. Just know that that's where things started, and it evolved into this deep meditation about Batman live action adaptations. We're not talking about the animated series. We're not even really talking about the comics, although the comics do come up as they relate to live action. Eventually it kind of bleeds into Superman as well and some other stuff, but it's mainly about Batman, and it's mainly talking about the live action movies that came before it. And you might hear some very sort of unpopular opinions, some hot, maybe not hot takes, but definitely not what is considered to be the status quo. And Bob and I, we just go back and forth. And I want to apologize in advance because, again, this is not a traditional organic conversation. It is a weird hodgepodge. It is a answer response, or it's a response, like we're playing audio tennis back and forth, serving and hitting the ball back and forth to each other, Bob and I. And some of our, so what you're going to hear is long strings of messages that are somewhat, maybe 10 minutes long at most. And what we were doing was we were recording these like private mini podcasts for each other, but they were, there's a lot of great content in there, especially if you are a Batman fan. So if you like Batman the way that Bob and I like, well, Bob doesn't like Batman as much as I like Batman, but whatever, he'll explain all of that. Bob is a Superman guy who obviously loves Batman too, but I'm not going to sit here and talk for him. But I'm like the Batman guy and Bob is the Superman guy. So I'm Bat Jeff. I call him Bat Bob in the recording, but he's Super Bob. He's Super Bob and I'm Bat Jeff. And he kind of, it's cool because he coins this idea of, well, he called it the Go-verse and I call it the Hingle Go-verse, but really it should just be the Hingle-verse. Bob was right about that. In relation to the fact that all four Warner Brothers films are linked by Michael Gough playing Alfred and Pat Hingle playing Commissioner Gordon. But again, we will dive into that. So I am so sorry for the hodgepodge. You're going to hear me talking to my kid for a second because I just because I was like recording this while I was like barbecuing dinner for my kids, that sort of thing. Like I just, whenever we had a chance, we're responding to each other's messages. And and it's sizable length where it felt like it could be strung together into a podcast. So that's what you are hearing. And I'm sorry that it's like that, that it's not more of a traditional flow of a conversation. And maybe, who knows, maybe we can figure out a way to do it in a better sort of way, because it was really fun, easy sort of way to make a podcast without actually thinking about making a podcast. And so if you like DC, if you like the live action films, or if you have opinions about live action films of, in the DC universe, this is definitely a conversation that you will appreciate. Additionally, maybe you will find that this conversation is very like sort of meditative, like you can just sort of deep dive, like you just sort of put it on and, maybe you're doing some menial task at work or whatnot, or, driving, and just sort of like fall into the Batman, Superman, DC comic rabbit hole that Bob and I would periodically fall down as we would have this insane discussion that eventually got to a point where it's like, we have to put a pin in the discussion. There's no way, like this is just going to keep going forever. And lastly, the last thing I will say is that there's a lot of redundancy in this conversation. There are things that are definitely repeated. I have not edited this conversation in any way. You are hearing the raw to raw stuff. Everything is concise and soundbite, but there's definitely redundancy in there. So be aware of the redundancy, and I apologize for it. And I promise you that even with the redundancy, it's interesting. And it just sort of piles over. So check it out. By the way, check out my Patreon. Check out Bob has a Patreon too. I'll put the links to both of those down in the comments. Make sure you subscribe to the Writer's Blockbuster show and Thunder Grunt and whatnot, as well as all my stuff. We'll just put the link trees down below, and you can check out all that stuff. Bob has a Patreon too, so you want to check that out. And that is all I got to say about that. Enjoy the conversation, and if it's boring or you don't like it, just turn it off. It's definitely not for everybody. Hey guys, what's going on? It's Jeff. So I've decided to make a Patreon. What is Patreon? I don't know how to define a Patreon. Let me look it up. Patreon is a membership platform that makes it very easy for creators to get paid for the things that they're already creating. I want to do it full time. I want this to be my full-time job. In my efforts to make that happen, I've set up this platform. Is it going to work? Is it going to be successful? I don't know, but I would rather try and crash and burn than not try at all. The goal is to create enough passive revenue so that I can continue to do this full-time, uninterrupted. Why? Because I love to do this. I love creating content. I love making videos. I love shooting films. I love doing podcasts. In case you couldn't tell, I love to talk, and I never shut the fuck up. So right now, I've kept the Patreon incredibly simple. There's 2 tiers, and that may change in the future. The Murdergram is a simple way to extend support for all of the hours and hours of free content on the channel for nothing more than $1. 38 cents goes to Patreon. What's $1.38, eh? It's less than a cup of coffee, but it's a great way that you can show support for very little effort. When you divide that $1.38 by the hours and hours and hours of time spent listening to this endless drivel of content, the dollar cost average works out. Next up is the YouTube casualty for $6.66. The YouTube casualty is loaded to the gills. Enjoy the archive ad-free, as well as ad-free early access to special docu-style podcast videos, music reaction commentaries, and the like, a month before they drop on YouTube, loaded with ads, I might add. You're also going to get exclusive content and behind-the-scenes content that is not available on YouTube or anywhere else. So you get to peek behind the veil. And believe me, there's a couple of choice pieces. Most of all, more than anything, whether you join the Patreon or not, I just want to thank each and every one of you that comes to the channel, that watches all the shows, that leaves comments, that participates, that subscribes. That's really the most important thing. This is just trying to find a way to earn a living as an artist. And with that, thank you for my TED Talk. Join the Patreon because we need you!
66 cents.
It's possible the Joel Schumacher cut could up it to about a 4 on the scale, but I still think that like Jamie's scale pretty much rests in that like Burton is kind of like the middle, and then Adam West Lego is at the silly, and then you've got your Christopher Nolan and a little bit less so Zack Snyder Batman at the top. And the Batman, of course. And I'm not saying that to add to our argument. Sorry, I'm driving, so I can't, like, type. I'm not saying this to, like, add to our ongoing mild argument between Schumacher and Burton. But I think even Schumacher would agree that he intentionally made things more cartoonish and comic booky, thus pushing it more towards the silly scale than Burton. Like, he literally said it's a comic book movie when asked about how silly things got. So I think even he would agree, if he were here, that it would be a 3 or a 4.
I guess what I mean to say is I'm trying to think that if any of the live action movies can occupy like a large enough Venn diagram for all of the attributes, characteristics of all of the spectrum of tones. And maybe I'm just biased because I love Batman Forever so much, but I really do think that Batman Forever comes close to sort of, you know, like hitting so many of the boxes with some glaring, you know, errors. But part of the spectrum of Batman, like the overall all-encompassing spectrum of Batman, not a particular iteration of Batman, because every iteration is valid, is that Batman is somewhat, there is like a tinge of camp to Batman. Yes, Schumacher, you know, goes way over, you know, is you know, vastly different from Burton and is, yeah, closer to the, whatever you said, 3 or 4 on the spectrum. But I just mean, like, you know, it still has that element. It has that camp element, whereas it also has some like really serious action in it, like really good, serious action. There's detective elements. There's, you know, Kilmer's a great Bruce Wayne Batman. You have like the Bruce Wayne Batman arc. Like the problem with Burton's movies is that, you know, Bruce Wayne Batman is so cardboard. He's so one-dimensional in Batman and Batman Returns, whereas he actually has like he actually has substance in Batman Forever. Like there's actual substance. Obviously, that stuff doesn't have anything to do with tone or, you know, being on a spectrum of tonal, you know, tone, but, you know, still meaning that, I don't know, it just, I feel like it's more all-encompassing of what Batman represents than any of the other live-action versions of Batman.
All right, I finally listened to your messages. Sorry, my car broke down like 3 minutes after I sent you that last message. So I spent like all afternoon with my mom and my roommate had to help. I had to get my car towed and shit. Anyway, obviously I don't agree that Batman is one-dimensional in Burton's Batmans. I really don't think it's a verse, you know, and also here's the thing. I know that you're arguing for the side that most humans detest. So I appreciate that. I'm not unaware that you're like defending the hard side here. I mean, also, like, you know, take note in the fact that I do love Batman Forever, and I do love Batman and Robin, less so, but I do love it and appreciate its absolute silliness. So I like all four movies, all four of the continuity wise, all four of those movies, because it does have the same Alfred, so it is continuity. I mean, it is continuity. There should be a name for that, like the I don't know what's the Alfred Golf cinematic Batman universe or something. It should be named after the Alfred, because he makes them have continuity. I don't agree that Batman's one dimensional, but we're gonna come to an impasse on that. And that's fine. Whatever. I get what you're trying to argue with that Batman Forever. I mean, look, Batman Forever, it soaks up more of the comic bookiness, but I don't know. I mean, I don't think, if I'm honest, I don't think any of the Alfred Golfiverse, it should be the Golfiverse, that's a terrible name. I don't think any of the four of them truly really honor the detective side of Batman. Like, I don't think all four, that whole series, those four movies, those are not the detective movies. They're not. It feels almost like the goal of those four movies is not that, and that's okay. Like you said, every itineration is valid, but that chunk of time, that was not the sole, I don't know, that wasn't what the public was yearning for as much as I think we are now. So it seems less relevant in those four movies. I don't know if I'm going to agree that Batman Forever and Batman and Robin have more detective work in them, because if they do, it's fucking minuscule, dude. It's so much less than what comes later. it's almost nil. It's because it is more like Adam West Batman. To some degree, Burton's Batman, his two Batman movies are the then dark and gritty reboot of Adam West, right? And then Joel Schumacher made the Adam West version of Tim Burton's Batman. It's actually kind of incredible how it all went down in retrospect. He added back the Adam Westness, but still, Jeff, put your goggles on of somebody watching them all new. Burton's Batman movies used to be considered dark and gritty and shit, and now in retrospect they look silly to people. So I think with modern eyes, the Schumacher Batman movies look intensely fucking silly. Whereas Burton's Batman has silly elements. There is silly to it, but that's my preference for them. Isn't just nostalgia. It's that stuff with Jack Nicholson's Joker. He is a silly tonal element in that movie, whether you like it or not. But he is also the fucking Joker. You know what I mean? He should be there chewing scenery and stuff. The boardroom scene in Burton's Batman. That's a silly scene when he fries the guy with his fucking hand buzzer. The fact that he even made that hand buzzer exist is funny. It's silly. That all four of those movies are silly. Just the other two push it farther to the side. And I don't think any minuscule amount of detective work makes the Schumacher ones raise up. But I don't know. I'll throw you a bone and say this, that Batman Forever is way better than anyone's ever getting it credit for. I think it's been rediscovered a lot. I think a lot of people appreciate it a lot more. And, I think there's a huge fandom for it. Less so Batman and Robin. But, yeah. But, Batman Forever, it's extremely they're all valid, but Batman Forever does encompass a wider range of tones. You're right. Because it does get super silly. But then again, I mean, you got Jim Carrey chewing every nano inch of scenery, just like in his own way. Like, what's great about that? All four of those movies, or those two, or the first three. I don't know if I count Batman and Robin in this statement, but like Jim Carrey and fucking like Jack Nicholson and Danny DeVito and Michelle Pfeiffer are 150% themselves. Yeah, I guess you could say that about Arnold Schwarzenegger. Are 150% themselves. Like, you take somebody's persona in those movies as a villain, and like the one thing you can say is they amplified who they are by a million. You know what I mean? Like, Jack Nicholson has never been more Jack Nicholson. Danny DeVito, Michelle Pfeiffer have never been more them. Jim Carrey has never been more Jim Carrey. Maybe arguably The Mask, you could argue The Mask was maybe, Jim Carrey times a million, but I mean, the Riddler, I don't know, like, regardless, all the performances of the villains is just like, it takes the performer and amps them up to like in the nth degree. The only real sin of Forever, I remember, man, I'm like, I just woke up. I think Tommy Lee Jones is really the only flaw, dude. And he's not bad. It's not like Tommy Lee Jones is bad, but like, I know this isn't what you were talking about before, but Tommy Lee Jones is not bad. It's just his Two-Face kind of acts like the Joker. Like he's really chewing the scenery. And I like Tommy Lee Jones in the movie, and I enjoy him, but it's like, as a representation of Two-Face, it's not who I view Two-Face as. His take is whacked out, like on crack. You know what I mean? He's but then again, I think Schumacher was like, just have fun. And they did. They absolutely did. They went all out. So I think Tommy Lee Jones just, went as hard as he could. Plus, he was playing against Jim Carrey, and we all know the famous, like, how he was annoyed with Jim Carrey. So, like, I think in retrospect, the one choice outside of the editing thing the studio made him do that I would have liked to have seen was to make the contrast between Two-Face and that version of the Riddler that much more different. Like, make Tommy Lee Jones, instead of making him a maniacal laughter guy, just switch him to much more, within himself, low speaking, diabolically quiet, where then you have him contrasted with Jim Carrey's Riddler, who is like, literally every ounce of his body is his weapon. But it's fine. That doesn't ruin the movie. I know you weren't looking for discussion specifically on Batman Forever. I'm gonna be a Burton guy till the day I die, and I apologize to you for that, because it's just, I'm not gonna budge. But I have come back to Batman Forever in my elder days as being incredible. So there's that, at least, there's that. It took me a long time. So
Oh, Bob, man, you think you're going to win this one? Well, I have news for you. You're not. I have to get back to work right now, but when I'm done, I'm going to listen to that 10-minute clip. This is me doing my best Joker impression.
Okay, hopefully this works. I am responding to your 10-minute podcast, Bob. That was excellent, man. And I I really do agree with a lot of your sentiments, man. You really nailed it. First of all, yeah, dude. I mean, Tommy Lee Jones is the greatest sin. And it is because, well, you say he's playing him like the Joker, and I would argue that there's like this Riddler, it's Jim Carrey doing the Riddler chemistry osmosis that is seeping into Tommy Lee Jones, where he's acting as goofy as Jim Carrey is as the Riddler, and his Riddler is really being more informed by like Cesar Romero's Joker from Batman 66 than it is, say, and a fusion with Frank Gershwin as well, both. But that it's like a fusion of those, and then that is somehow infecting Tommy Lee Jones, and maybe subconsciously Tommy Lee Jones hated Jim Carrey because we don't actually know the reason why. He just said, "I'll never sanction your buffoonery." Maybe he was getting notes from Schumacher, and this is obviously speculation, about like, you know, how he should do a take, or how or getting adjustments to takes, or, you know, picking takes or things or whatever that are far more over the top than maybe Jones would have wanted. Who knows? Maybe they had conversations about it. Maybe Schumacher was saying, you know, I want you to, you know, your chemistry needs to be like this with Carrey. I don't know. That's a neither here nor there. A total aside to the fact that, yes, he is absolutely the greatest sin. In terms of like the detective work, yeah, all 4 films are void of detective work. But the reason why I was arguing with you and putting Batman Forever above the rest is because there's a whole scene that is devoted to detecting. Whereas in every other movie, there is zero detecting. It's void of all detection. And that is where you have it's almost like Joel Schumacher was like, okay, we need the obligatory, Batman's a detective, right? So we need a little bit of detection in our Batman story. So he throws in this scene where they have to decipher the Riddler, you know, the Riddler's riddles to ultimately decide what the Riddler is up to, which is just super I mean, that's a super Batman sort of detective mystery thing that he would do in the comic books. Which comic book? I don't know. Would he do that in a Frank Miller book? Probably not. But, you know, like, I mean, the right era, you would find that in the same way that the comic book plots in Batman and Robin and Batman Forever, even in the Burton films, the idea that, you know, Penguin wants to be the mayor, Joker wants to gas the city. I mean, what's funny is I guess Joker's actually kind of somewhat in line with the chaos of Heath Ledger's Joker, in that he just wants to cause mayhem and just be a crime boss or whatever, a crazy crime boss. And yeah, dude, I mean, I also love what you said about how they all 4 of those films really truly do amplify the character traits of those actors and elevate them. And that's like the beauty of those movies, of the Hingle-Go-verse, as we will call it. We'll call it the Hingle-Go-verse. Hingle-Go. Let it roll off the tongue. Hingle-Go-verse. Because we have to acknowledge that Pat Hingle is also connecting these 4 movies. And then what's funny is you have Chris O'Donnell as the Robin that connects Batman and Robin and Joel Schumacher. I mean, Batman and Robin and Batman Forever. And then you have Michael Keaton connecting Batman and Batman Returns in the Burton films, which is also kind of an interesting sort of thing. And yeah, man, I mean, like, you know, they what they're meant to be is they're meant to be superheroes. That's what they were going for in the 90s. They're just supposed to be superhero films. And the thing about Batman is so much more than just a superhero. He's also a detective. And really, the only true film to be a detective film, that to actually really harp on the detectiveness of Batman, is this last one that came out with Robert Pattinson, The Batman. That's the first time that we really get to see Batman being a detective, a proper detective, and sort of going around. And yes, we get some of that. We do get some of that in Nolan's films, but it really, for me, it really comes through. It comes through in the Batman more than anything else. I too, as much as I love Batman Forever, I think Batman Forever I always, from the beginning, every time I saw a Batman movie in the 90s, I never hated any of those Batman movies. I didn't. I thought, yes, when I was excited when Batman Begins came out because I was really, really, really into the source material and very much a purist and thinking, oh, they're finally doing Batman right. Cool. But even still, I always valued and loved all four of those Batman movies, even Batman and Robin when it came out. I never judged it. I really didn't. I never judged the nipples, nothing. All the way back to, I can still remember seeing it in 1997. And, you know, I mean, I was a kid. I was a young kid at the time, too. So it didn't really, I mean, those films always, and I've always just sort of been very protective of them because I just think that they're all valid. I really do, in the same way that you do. So, you know, and the truth is, and that, as we said, you know, Batman really is, he's so malleable. You really can make a film that focuses on a particular aspect of Batman. And in the case of the 90s, they're like, we're going to make superhero films. So he has to be a superhero. And, you know, first and foremost, he's a superhero. Everything else needs to come second to being a superhero trying to stop a supervillain. The irony, though, is that Batman remains a constant. Like, for the most part, he's really a constant. He's unchanging. He is just simply there to stop these villains. They're villain stories. The villains start off, we witness all the villains' origins, and they go into a state of change, and they have somewhat of an arc in the sense of they decide they want to do this thing, whatever it may be, and Batman stops them. And that's the end. It's not much of an arc. It's not much of anything, really. It's just spectacle. And those movies are just, they're fun and they're nostalgic and they just always hold a special place in my heart. I can't stand the fucking Nolan movies. I like Batman Begins, but I can't stand The Dark Knight. I can't stand The Dark Knight Rises. They anger me so much. They anger me in a way that the new Star Wars trilogy angers you. They really do. I just think they so betray so much about what Batman is kind of about, I guess. And this is coming from, you know, the fact that Burton has Batman killing people in the original Batman. Somehow that is more okay than some of the choices that are made in some of those Nolan movies. And that's just, I don't know, that's just how I kind of feel about it. And you know, with this latest iteration, as you guys are discussing in this podcast episode, it's like, you know, just seeing him go through a true state of change from being this early Batman and, you know, kind of like deciding to not be so, self-oriented, self-seeking, and starting to think that maybe he can use Batman to really, truly contribute to the city in a meaningful way, in a way that, you know, his father's initiatives never could, you know? It really did elevate the character. And I haven't rewatched it yet. I really need to. I'm going to finish watching your episode, and at some point I'm going to rewatch that one. It's just, man, that runtime, killer runtime. But yeah, that little moment of hesitation before he jumps, where you see Batman scared while he's dressed as Batman, is so real, so awesome to me. I don't know why. It added such an element to Batman in a way that we have not seen him cinematically on the screen. And then, you know, in terms of like what Ben Affleck's Batman is the Justice League Batman. The Batman that does go toe-to-toe with Darkseid, the way he does in the comic book, I might add. Jeff Loeb did a whole thing where Batman took on Darkseid toe-to-toe, being protected. He was protected by a mother box. Darkseid beat the shit out of him, but he used leverage to make Darkseid back off, threatening to trigger a bunch of those spots that are on Apocalypse, you know, those crater things. And, you know, and in that regard, Batfleck is great. You know, he works as that sort of, you know, Justice League, like it reminds me kind of a little bit of the of the whatever you want, the Diniverse, the Bruce Timm Justice League Unlimited Batman that I love so much because I love that Batman. That is a great Batman. That cartoon Batman. So there you go. There you have it.
All right, I'm finally listening to your Batman messages. I wanted to say also, like, I think what's interesting, I'm halfway through your message. I think what's interesting, too, is that for me, since I'm not the biggest Batman fan, that I'm more of a film fan than I am a Batman fan, right? So, like, I like the Batman movies as movies more than I do as I don't care too much about Batman. Like, Nolan for me is too corrupt for me to enjoy it. You know, like he corrupted it so much that I can't enjoy it as a Batman movie. But like I don't like, it's kind of like when I used to argue with my friend who's a Spider-Man fanatic how he hates the Tobey Maguire movies, and I'm like, yeah, but still you don't understand is I don't care that they're not accurate. I care that Sam Raimi directed them. Like, that's why they're my favorite. They're not my favorite because of my love of Spider-Man, because I don't love Spider-Man. Just like Batman's not my hero. You already know this. So, like, I'm not that adamant about it. You know what I mean? So, like, the 90s movies don't... I feel like as great as they are, they're also not, like, the most accurate to his detection and stuff. Like they're just not... That's not there. But also, like, that's not what I'm looking for in those movies, and that's not why I care about those movies at all. I don't care that Batman's not a detective that much in those movies. I don't care that Batman is, you know, mildly flat. I don't, you know, I feel like the performances aren't flat. The writing might be flat because the writing didn't really care about him so much. I don't care that much. Like, it doesn't bother me because I'm not that... Honestly, the reason I don't like Batman that much is because of his internal nature and him. I don't like him as a person or character much. So, like, that's one of the reasons that I'm not that I might like the 90s movies even more, is because it doesn't bog me down with all the bullshit that comes with Batman. You know? So I think that's an important distinction here I'd have to make. And I think... something to think about is as much as the Batman dug into the detective side of Batman for the first time really well. Hear me out. I think James Gunn's Superman Legacy will finally on screen dig into Superman struggling, because he said this line, struggling being kind in an unkind world. That was James Gunn's line when he pitched it in that video. And I think we're going to get the first Superman movie that really deals with that, which is something after all these years. We haven't had a Superman movie totally really grapple properly with that. You know what I mean? So I think that, you know, with The Batman and with Superman Legacy, we're going to finally in live action see these, like, topics that haven't totally been, you know, explored properly. Like, the Batman already did it, and I assume that the Batman 2 is going to do it further. And I think I trust James Gunn to do the same thing, the Superman version of the Batman, pretty much. Like, obviously he's not going to, you know, it's not going to look even remotely the same, but you understand what I mean. Like, he's going to dig in where we have yet to really dig in before, which the Batman did dig into the detective side of things very well. That was probably one of the best parts of the movie. And, you know, the Batman is a decent fucking movie. I don't hate it or anything. To me, it's just like, I'd rather watch the Golf Hingleverse Batman movies any day than watching any of the other Batman movies. But I'll admit, much to our early discussions in 2020, I don't hate Ben Affleck's Batman. Like, there's a part of me that's grown. He's grown on me. He's a fucking moron, and he's like an aggressive piece of shit. But, like, there's a piece of me that wishes we would have got more Zack Snyder Batman. That does interest me, because Zack Snyder is silly while being excessively dark, and it's all just fucking silly. And there's a silliness to it that I appreciate now that I've cooled down after years of rewatching. So, like,
that would probably be, yeah, I wouldn't mind more Zack Snyder Batman, but I know we're not going to get that. So in the 90s, I fucking hated Batman Forever. I think I told you when I wrote for Kevin Smith's website around 2010, 9, somewhere around there. I literally, like, the first fucking thing I wrote for Kevin Smith's website was about how much I fucking hate the Batmobile in Batman Forever. Like, it angered me so vehemently that the Batmobile had neon lights on it in Batman Forever. Even as a kid, I never could let it go. So it took me another, like, it took me basically another decade for me to be, like, kind of to grapple, like, I was not okay with those two movies. And it wasn't for a I'm proud to say it was never for a homophobic reason. It was more just I hated that they weren't Tim Burton's Batman. You know, like, it was never me saying Joel Schumacher's gay. I didn't even know Joel Schumacher was gay until, like, you know, I was older. So that was not a factor in my criticisms. But, like, I kind of didn't. I needed to grow up and, like, I think develop my own sense of humor and taste more, and then revisit the Schumacher Batmans and also appreciate Joel Schumacher as a filmmaker more. I think the problem in the 90s with me, you know, was that my exposure to Joel Schumacher was limited, and I also didn't know the movies he directed, because I'd watched The Lost Boys, but I'd never, like, connected his name with it. You know what I mean? Like, I watched a lot of his movies, but they weren't, you know, I wasn't really paying attention to directors as much. So, like, in the 90s, his name was synonymous with terrible. You know what I mean? His name was. And my family wasn't into film. My parents weren't into film. I had no guidance here. So I didn't have anyone telling me, no, actually, Joel Schumacher is a fucking great director. Like, no one was, like, there to say that to me. So it took years for me to, like, kind of figure out where I was on all that and be like, oh, wait a minute, Joel Schumacher did this and this. He did Falling Down, and he did Flatliners, and he did The Lost Boys, and, you know, like, oh wait, Joel Schumacher's fucking awesome. And then it took me, like, even longer to come back to the Batman movies and be like, all right, let me like sit down and just, like, understand him, what he was doing with these. And it, you know, it took a long time, and I got there by myself, but, you know, YouTube, with several people kind of revisiting it. I've sent you that Patrick H. Willems video where he revisits the Joel Schumacher Batman movies, and, like, he kind of had the same thing with him. He admits in the video, same thing happened with him pretty much. So that's why I love that video so much, because his mindset was the same as mine. It was like we all thought a lot of us thought it was terrible, and we just went for it. You know, we were like, fuck this. It's not Tim Burton's Batman. Fuck it. But, you know, I mean, you know, it just took me another 10 years to be like, wait a minute. Same thing, you know, and that's how movies, you change, movies stay the same, you know? So, you know, I really did go with the popular narrative on that one, except I didn't have the homophobia aspect, because I didn't know he was gay, but I never thought the problems, I think those movies are camp. It doesn't mean, it's not because Joel Schumacher is gay. I think it's because to him, Batman was Adam West. I think that's what it was, you know? But yeah, so you love it. I'm responding to you saying you love them from the get-go. Is not something that I feel the same about. Like, Batman Forever was a betrayal back in the day for me, and Batman and Robin was laughable, you know? I mean, like, it was, God, the Batmobile having neon lights, I get it now, but, like, I still don't love that Batmobile. Like, okay, here's the thing. Tim Burton's Batmobile design has yet, in my opinion, has yet to be surpassed. That is the greatest Batmobile design that will ever be. I have never seen a single Batmobile that has ever looked cooler, ever been better. I don't care. Nothing. You know, the animated series Batmobile is awesome, but it's also like the animated series version of the Tim Burton Batmobile. You know what I mean? So, like, when Batman Forever came out and they turned the Batmobile into what it is in that movie, I was just like, are you fucking serious right now? I was so pissed. It was, here, I just want to reassure you, Jeff, it was never about Val Kilmer. Like, as much as I absolutely adore Michael Keaton in more than just Batman, and he is one of my heroes, it was never the recasting that was Val Kilmer. It was literally the fucking Batmobile that soured me instantly. I was like, I was down with the movie until the Batmobile showed up as a kid, and I was just like, I can't do this. It looks like a fucking rib cage with neon lights. I am going to burn this theater down, you know? That's what did it. So it took me 20 years to deal with the horrid nature of that Batmobile. And I'm even with my acceptance of the movies and my love of Batman Forever, I'm still not crazy about that Batmobile, if I'm honest with you. It's just like Burton's Batmobile is the most beautiful fucking creation ever. It's the most perfect, badass, awesome Batmobile. And then look at Joel Schumacher's Batmobile. It's a fucking abomination. It's so terrible. I hate it. God, that's what really turned me off for like 20 years. See, the funny thing is that I hate Rise of Skywalker, but I think I hate Nolan's Batman maybe slightly more because people love it more. Rise of Skywalker is a divisive movie, but I mean, Nolan's Batman is beloved by fucking people. That's the bitch of it. It's like our opinions, me and you, our opinion of Nolan's Batman is like rare. It's like not what everyone thinks. Like, you know, people hate Rise of Skywalker or they love Rise of Skywalker. So it's like, there's a lot of people that agree with either side of that. But I mean, people like The Dark Knight is considered a masterpiece, which boggles my fucking mind. I hate it so much, but whatever. I mean, if I had to rank live action Batmans, by actor or how about this? If I had to rank live action Batmans by franchise, one would obviously be the Goff, Millerverse. No, sorry, the Goff Hingleverse. I know where I got the Miller thing from. Goff Hingleverse. 2. I'm only counting 90s and up. I'm not doing Adam West. So 90s and up live action franchise rankings. 1, this is going to surprise you. 1 is the Goff, verse. 2, you know what, Jeff, you're going to hate me because of all the shit I've given you about Zack Snyder, but I think it might be Snyder's Batman. 3 would be The Batman. And then, am I forgetting any Batmans here? 4, and then 4 would be Nolan, because no matter what, Nolan's at the bottom. 100%. But as far as franchise Batman, that's how I would rate it. And I think I need to see more of The Batman. The Batman 2 could change that ranking. I think Matt Reeves is an incredibly talented filmmaker, as you heard me say on that podcast. He made War of the Planet of the Apes, which I still say is a fucking Sergio Leone level masterpiece. But anyway, the guy is a really talented filmmaker. But, the Batman 2 might change that, but I think to some degree, Zack Snyder's Batman, obviously I'm looking more for fun, right? Because to me, Zack Snyder's Batman, while it's corrupt as a vision, it's also like super silly, it's like silly. And then the 2 bottom ones are the most serious. The Batman and Nolan's Batman are like this, are the bottom for me. So obviously I'm trending towards lighter fare, more comic booky and shit. You know what I mean? Like, I would rather watch Batman. To me, I mean, like, if you want me to say it out loud, just for your own, so you can jerk off to it, Batman Forever to me is an infinitely better film and time, and an infinitely better fun watch, interesting watch than like all of Nolan's Batman, all of Zack Snyder's Batmans, and The Batman. I prefer Batman Forever to all of those, 100%. So I want you to know that whenever we argue about this, when we're splitting hairs between Burton and Schumacher, know that I love Batman Forever more than every live action Batman that came after Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer trumps all of them so far for me. Like, his suit doesn't, and his Batmobile doesn't, but his movie does. Now, when it comes to Batmobiles, yeah, he does. He's definitely ranking pretty fucking low, but you've already heard that in another message. Yeah, like, if I had to say anything good about Ben Affleck's Batman, he's more operable in a group setting than he is by himself. Maybe we didn't get to see enough, and his span as Batman was such a mess. But like, he is very operable in a group setting. And like, here's the thing: I know Michael Keaton can't move his neck, and I know Val Kilmer had trouble moving his neck. But like, the design of Keaton's costume to me is my favorite. Just the way it looks. Okay, I understand he can't move his neck, but if we're removing Keaton from, I'm sorry, I don't totally love the Batman Forever costume, but it's good. It's not my favorite. But like, if we remove Keaton from the running, dude, I fucking adore Zack Snyder's Batman costume. Adore it. It fucking rules. Like, he looks like a brick shithouse. Like, Batman should never be able to survive a punch by Superman, but at least Zack Snyder made me believe he might not die by a poisoned Superman punch. You know what I mean? Like he looks like a brick shit house. He really looks fucking. He just looks incredible, and especially in his normal costume. An incredible design. Like, that's my biggest heartbreak, is because like Reeves Batman suit. I think the suit's really important with all these characters. So if I talk about it too much, that's just what's going to happen. Like, Superman's costume is important to me too, but Batman, his costume is fine. It's not like, it's compared to Nolan's Batman, anything is a masterpiece. Anything. You could literally barf on somebody and I'd be like, that's a better Batman costume. But holy fuck, I just wish we could have kept Zack Snyder's Batman costume going forward. It's so fucking good. Oh my god, is it good? I love it so vehemently. I hate how much I love Zack Snyder's superhero costumes. I love his Superman costume. I love his Batman costume. I'm not crazy about the Flash. Wonder Woman looks good. And Aquaman, I don't think, I guess. Cyborg looks awesome. But his fucking Batman costume is, like, it is the fucking, it's what I've always wanted. And I finally got it. And I just, like, couldn't we keep that aspect? But it's fine. The Batman costume is fine. I'm going to rewatch the Batman too. I just haven't had the chance, and like, I'd rather watch other stuff right now, but like, I need to give it a second chance. I do. But that costume is fine. The Batmobile is cool because it's just like a real car. It's like fine. It's fine. I think the reason I'm responding to your second message now, I'm sorry, you got all these messages. I know how you love little podcasts. I think it's not so. Tommy Lee Jones in Batman Forever isn't boring to watch. He's not boring. He's just not doing anything besides being crazy Tommy Lee Jones. It's not a character. It doesn't feel like a Batman villain. It feels like Tommy Lee Jones showed up to be a villain in a Batman movie, and it didn't matter what his name was. But I think that the thing that's sad, the sin isn't that it's wrong for Two-Face. The sin is that Tommy Lee Jones playing the Two-Face that we know, like the version of Two-Face from like Batman the Animated Series. He could do that version incredibly well. Like the Tommy Lee Jones performance that is aiming for the target that is like, I'm pointing to the animated series. Tommy Lee Jones could kill that fucking role, right? Like he could nail that shit. And I think that's the sin
more than him not being accurate. It's that we were deprived one of our greatest living actors doing a very studied, methodical performance that, we had seen in other versions. And instead we brought out, because Tommy Lee Jones has those two sides, there's like the crazy Tommy Lee Jones, then there's the very centered, calm, plotting Tommy Lee Jones. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's, the sin is that we missed out on that performance, because he, in another universe, him at that age, at that time, being that version, being the other toned version of Two-Face would have been so fucking good. He would have sank everyone else that ever approached that role. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's too old now to do it. I mean, you could CGI youth make him all young and shit. But he would have killed it so fucking hard at that age, doing it proper. Like, wasn't it Clancy Brown was it Clancy Brown in the original animated series? Just that version. I don't know. Like, Tommy Lee Jones would have killed it. He would have made the dude from fucking, from Nolan's Batman movies, which I don't think is a good Two-Face personally. He would have made him Aaron Eckhart. He would have made him look like a joke. Like, we're talking about Tommy Lee fucking Jones here. It's not like some, Oscar-winning Tommy Lee fucking Jones, the guy who won an Oscar for The Fucking Fugitive. Like, he could have killed it, and we're deprived of that. And what we get in his place is a very cocaine-fueled performance, which is fine. It just doesn't have much, especially, like you said, osmosis from Jim Carrey. It's like Jim Carrey brings the noise because he's Jim Carrey, peak Jim Carrey, right? You didn't need him. You didn't need a second one being a cocaine-fueled 90s silly nightmare, But God, Tommy Lee Jones would have killed that shit so hard, man. If it was like, if it was just the other version of Two-Face, God, he would have been good. One of our best fucking actors doing that character at that prime of his life. Oh my God. I get that there's a detection scene in Batman Forever. It doesn't mean anything to me as far as like what I like more. Here's the thing. If I had to defend the Burton movies with this aspect, what I kind of love about the Burton movies, and what I think that it's funny because a lot of people complain about movies now, comic book movies now being too origin orientated, is that it just doesn't explain anything to us. And I love it. I love that. I love that Batman's already fucking Batman. We get the flashback and everything, but I love that Batman's already Batman, and like, he's established. He's been doing it. His detection work is all off. Like, there is detective work happening in the Burton movies. We are not shown it. We are not shown it. It's like off-screen Batman being a detective. Like, everything is just like, hey, accept that Batman knows his fucking shit. He's been doing this for a while. Accept everything about Batman, you sons of bitches. And we just kind of do. Like that. I mean, you can't argue that those two movies aren't giant, massive fucking hits, and people fucking still worship them to this day. Christ, Batman Returns is so beloved, it's ridiculous. But you know what I mean? Like, he is doing detective work in those movies, but it's all happening off screen, and they do not care to tell us the mumbo jumbo of Batman whatsoever, and I appreciate that. There's something about it that I really love. I just love that it's like, yeah, this is what's happening. He is Batman. And you know what? Batman already knows shit, you dumb fucks. Just accept it. I do enjoy that about that franchise. It's just Batman. Okay, he has a working fucking Batmobile, and he built this entire Batcave, and I'm just going to accept all of this shit. All right. And, like, it's very... It trusts the audience to know the lore way more than you'd ever assume a movie from 1989 would have done. And it absolutely, back then, worked like gangbusters because that movie was a fucking phenomenon. You know what I mean? It's just that rare case of, like,
let's explain almost fucking nothing, and just totally works for the entirety of, you know, a 4-quadrant audience throughout the world. It's just like, you watch it now and you're like, man, how did they get away with not explaining jack shit? And yeah, he is doing most of his detecting. Like, there's shots of Michael Keaton, like, looking at his screens and doing the Batman screen detection stuff, Batman hacking. But there isn't him, like, you know, I understand that there's not much of him detecting stuff. And that's what I'm saying, is like, there's just this, like, Burton's non-interest in Batman being a detective, but also having scenes where it's obvious he's doing all this at some point. We're just not seeing it. It's funny to me. Like, Burton doesn't give a fuck about the detective aspect whatsoever. And I'm fine with the detective aspect, but I also don't need it to like it. I think that's the difference here. And one little crumb of a scene in Batman Forever to me doesn't really sway my opinion either or way. I understand that it obviously does yours, but it just doesn't do much for me, you know?
Okay, let's see if it lets me do longer than a minute here. This is in response to parts 2 and 3, because I won't be able to keep track of everything I want to say. I, too, would love to see some more Ben Affleck Batman. I wish we got the Batfleck solo film with him writing or co-writing and directing as well as starring. I really think that would have just rocked. I also am very excited to see James Gunn's interpretation, because as we come to realize, James Gunn can literally take anything. He could take any wool and spin it into gold. And that's not to say that, like, the Guardians of the Galaxy is wool, but it's just that, like, nobody thought that Guardians of the Galaxy could be like the Marvel Star Wars. And lo and behold, he transformed these somewhat obscure comic book characters into lovable mainstream household icons. So I'm excited. I'm excited for all of it. I'm ready for James Gunn's Superman. I'm ready for whatever his Batman is going to look like. I wasn't exactly following the announcements, but, you know, and even when those came, like I said, I pretty much, I did have a slight bit of growing up to do, in the sense of back when I was saying about, like, that period when I was really reading a lot of Batman comics, and I was a comic purist, and I had the similar sort of, you know, feeling about, like, you know, what the hell, you know, like, what the hell, this isn't comic accurate. I thought comic accuracy above all else was important. But I love the observation that you brought up. That's a great observation, in that it's important to sort of appraise a movie for the sake of its moviness, and not necessarily what it gets right or it gets wrong, because all of these things are interpretations of the source material. And I believe, like, I feel like that's such a coming of age as, like, a comic book fan. If you love comics or comic book literature, there comes a point in time where you realize that they're never going to make the adaptation that's perfect to the comic. And for some reason, there's this mentality that perfect adaptation of the source material equates with goodness. And in that sense, you know, as well as the fact that, you know, all of these adaptations are also a product of their time, as is any adaptation, as is any movie. But in particular, Batman, you're talking about, you know, the 90s Schumacher Batmobile. Well, I'll be honest with you. First of all, there's nothing tops the Burton mobile. That is the GOAT. It is the be-all, end-all GOAT. There's nothing more iconic or singular when it comes to Batman's Batmobile. In fact, it should have been canon. That design, probably not possible because of some sort of trademark, but that should be absolutely character canon, that Batmobile. All Batmobiles can be varied in some way, shape, or form, but need to start. It needs to start. That needs to be the basis of said Batmobile. It needs to start with the Burtonmobile, in my personal opinion. But, you know, just to give you an idea, you know, when I think back to the 90s and I think back to the Batmobiles, I don't know, I just, like, I didn't even really give a shit what the Batmobile looked like. I was just like, oh yeah, Batmobile, okay. I never thought it was anything special, but I didn't hate it. The neon lights, I literally don't think I've ever thought about them until you said something. like right now, in 30 years of watching Batman Forever, I never once ever questioned neon lights in the ribcage Batmobile. But, you know, I mean, I don't know, just a total non-factor for me personally. I understand that it was not for you. But it's just interesting how we sort of gravitate towards those things. And, you know, in terms, I do agree. Yes, the fact that Joel Schumacher is gay, and this would actually be a really interesting podcast topic. The fact that Joel Schumacher is gay, I personally think obviously keys into a lot of the hate for those films, in the sense that whether it is because of the bat nipples, I don't know if this is making sense. It makes sense in my head. Whether it is because of the bat nipples or whether it's because he was pushing towards the Adam West of it all of that stems from the fact that Joel Schumacher was a gay man. And I don't mean that in the pejorative. I just mean that, you know, in the same way that, like, we say that, like, oh, it's, you know, people say all the time, like, I wish women were in positions of power because there'd be less wars. This idea that for whatever reason, women would hold more sensibility than men in the same position of power. And in this kind of way, perhaps there is sort of like a gay bend towards the theatricality of Batman. You know, again, and going back to that Patrick Willems video about, you know, or what, one of the videos about Batman Forever, where they talk about the fact that Batman has a lot of gay subtext. So you have a gay director who is going to be super aware of gay subtext, and perhaps maybe even gravitating towards it because they maybe find it more relatable in the fact that, you know, whether it's, you know, I don't know, just like they gravitate towards things that might be perceived as gay subtext. So in the sense of like, hey, like, you know, camp, we're going to make this really campy, or we're going to up the campy sort of factor, because Batman Forever is a very campy film. Obviously, you know this. Like, it's an incredibly friggin' campy film. And obviously, we don't even need to say what Batman and Robin is, because it's like, it is probably the epitome of camp in many ways. Some people would probably put it next to the definition of camp in the dictionary. But it's just sort of this bend that maybe comes from, it's like, oh, here's the source material and I'm picking up on this subtext, and that in turn influences, hey, let's put nipples on the batsuit because, you know, we're going for like a Greco-Roman statue-esque physique, you know, that sort of thing. And, you know, bat cod pieces and bat buttocks and stuff and whatnot. And, you know, to the pop culture zeitgeist, you know, of the 90s, like found that to be reviling in some way, shape, or form. I don't know. I really went off topic here about what, in trying to respond to what you were saying, but I think all of it is, to bottom line it, I think all of it is relative. All of it is relative. You know, for me, the Burton movies came out and then they went in a different direction. We all thought the Burton movies were the gold standard. Everybody considered them to be the gold standard. In the 90s at the time, I didn't think the Schumacher movies were the gold standard. I just thought it was a continuation and that I enjoyed, and I enjoyed it. And if you look at those Schumacher movies, particularly the openings of both of those movies, as just a movie fan, forget about that it's Batman, forget about that it's camp, forget about all that stuff. The enthralling action of Batman Forever sucks you in. It's the same. He tries to do the same thing with Batman and Robin. You have these elaborate 15-minute chase action sequences that open the movie and suck you in, as opposed to every Marvel movie, which is like, you know, opens with like a cookie cutter origin story, and, you know, action doesn't really start to, you know, pick up in any kind of big way that those Batman movies do until much later. And it's just like, it's just different, and it's different from the Burton movies in that kind of way. But as those movies have aged like a fine wine for me. So it's like starting off like not hating them and just thinking they were great, always thinking they were fine, great, whatever, non-factors. But like slowly like realizing, wow, these, especially after fucking Nolan's movies came out, and then I was like, holy shit, I fucking hate like fuck this shit. Like it really does make it also unenjoyable because you set it too much in the real world. It's too real. You do need that, going to what you were saying about Zack Snyder. He manages to balance the silliness with darkness, and it makes everything feel more real, I guess, but while embracing all of those comic book sensibilities. I will try to make my response to your other this is gonna never end, dude. I can't do this.
All right, I'll leave you an audio message for this one aspect, just because I thought it was notable. The one thing I'll give Burton this is like I said, Joel Schumacher. I'm not taking anything away from him, but I do feel, because he was literally making a third and fourth movie from a franchise started successfully by Tim Burton, he made the Joel Schumacher version of Tim Burton's already established world. He just added his sauce on top. And obviously it got to a point with Batman and Robin that it got too far away and people were back then rejecting it. But here's the thing though. The one thing we all can agree on is that Tim Burton created a style with Batman 89 that it lived through that whole decade. It really did, because every movie wanted to be, Batman, right? Like we had the Phantom, we had, the Shadow, Dick Tracy. You watch all those fucking movies, they look and sound and feel like they exist in the Burton Batman universe. Not to mention the actual, Hingle Go-verse, there was Burton. We can give him his licks and we can, shit on him for all of his modern choices. But he created a look and a feel with those first two movies, especially the first one. I think I'm really giving it to 89 because Returns is more Tim Burton-y than, anything. But the first movie created that feel and that look and that Danny Elfman score and just the style of it, everything about it created this I don't know, just it's format for what the 90s comic book movies aimed for, sure, there was some that didn't. I would say the Rocketeer and Phantom don't totally fit that total bill, but you watch Dick Tracy, you watch The Shadow, it's they were literally greenlit to be more Burton-y shit, you know what I mean, without Tim Burton. It was just here's Tim Burton stuff, but Tim Burton's not in charge, there is that about those, and here's I guess my point with this message is to say, I wonder what would have happened if Joel Schumacher, the man who made Lost Boys and Flatliners in the 80s, if he was given Batman 89 right from the get-go. I wonder what would have happened, because my instinct is to say he would have went instantly cartoony with it. And I wonder how that would have all went down. I'm not saying it would. I'm not saying I wouldn't have liked it. What I'm saying is I wonder about the success of it if he went instantly cartoony with it, because obviously he has an affinity for the Adam West versions and shit. But the reason Burton brought his grit to it back then, was considered gritty, and that's why those things were so successful, But I think Schumacher, if he was the one to start the franchise, it might not have been a franchise, if you know what I mean. It might have been Batman 89. Remember that one movie that people kind of have revisited and stuff? It wouldn't have been the franchise it was, because I think that Batman, okay, I'm not insulting. I'm trying to say Batman Forever is great because of all the context in which it lives. It's great because you needed the Burton movies to establish that world, make the world fall in love with that universe and the idea of Batman movies again, and for in general. And then Batman Forever could play around. Joel Schumacher came in and he could play around with it. You know what I mean? And because he was sort of still a little bit reined in with his idea of what he wanted, he had a mix of, you know, taking a little bit of what Burton did and then putting the Joel Schumacher, you know, paint on it. And that's why Batman Forever is great still, you know? And, you know, and then that gave way to Batman and Robin, which I do appreciate because it's just a fucking batshit movie. But like, you know, I wouldn't call Batman and Robin great. I would say the first three are great in their own, each one in their own right for different reasons. But like, Batman Forever needs the contextual, like, you know, place in that franchise to have worked and been great is kind of what I'm arguing here. Like, you couldn't start with Batman Forever. If Batman Forever was the first Batman movie, if Batman Forever was Batman 89, I don't think there'd be a Go Hingleverse. I think there'd just be Batman 89, and it stops there. Like, and that's not, like, I just don't think the public would have had grasped it as much. I think it would have been mildly successful, and people would be like, this isn't exactly what we still are going apeshit for. They wouldn't have been carving the Batman symbol in their head like they did with Burton, you know? So that's just a theory. It can never be proven, but I think you'd agree with me there, because the Burton movies, you obviously agree with me that the Burton movies had such a fucking impact, and they literally they were like the Matrix. You know how everything looked like the Matrix after the Matrix? Everything looked like Tim Burton's Batman after Tim Burton's Batman for, like, 9 years. So like, you know, you couldn't have started out with Batman Forever. Batman Forever is the perfect third movie in that franchise. That's my point. It's the perfect third movie within the context of that franchise. That's why it's great. That's my argument. It's weird as fuck of an argument, and it sounds like I'm insulting it, but I'm not.
Okay, this is in response to part 3 of the Bat Bob Chronicle secret Frumess podcast on Messenger. I think I agree with your ranking for franchises. I'm right there with you. I will concede that exact ranking. That totally works for me, man. The Goth Hingleverse is number 1, followed by Snyder, followed by the Batman, and Nolan at the bottom. I also, I mean, this is just going to be me agreeing with a lot of your points right now, but it's just because we are so, for all the things that we disagree on and, bicker about, this is something we are so parallel on. I think I'm baffled, mind-boggled by how highly regarded The Dark Knight is. It makes no sense to me. It's like logic defying in its stupidity. That movie is so fractured. The plot, the character motivations are so fractured to me. It just none of it made sense. It didn't make sense in the theater, and every time I've rewatched it, I've only rewatched it because Heath Ledger is just such a great Joker. He's so fun to watch. No matter what you say about that movie, you will rewatch it because Heath Ledger is just brings something so fresh. And there are just those movies out there that you watch for performances. Like, everybody on paper, Gangs of New York is not considered to be a great film. I personally think it's a great film, but the general movie-going public or Joe Q movie fan is going to say that Gangs of New York is not a great film. However, the performance of William Cutting, Bill the Butcher, is one of the best cinematic performances of all time. It's just so incredible. And so I have rewatched Gangs of New York, not just because I like it, but because I need to see William Cutting over and over and over again and just revel in the awe of, DDL, in the same way that I revel with Heath Ledger. And to bring the last point in this response to part 3 of the Bat Bob, friggin' yeah, dude, it's about silliness and fun, and I think, and that's the key to Batman. The key to Batman is riding that razor thin edge between outrageously silly and taking it seriously. And the problem with Nolan and maybe the Batman to an extent is that the way that they choose to take it seriously is by trying to, embed that tone, imbue it in the realer than real world. And it just doesn't work that way for a character like Batman. You need an element of silliness. And that's why you like Snyder's Batman, because it has that. That's exactly what it is. As you said previously, as I've said previously, that's what it is, man. It's just, it is, and that's something that Snyder, it's funny how Nolan, brilliant filmmaker, Reeves, and I love those Planet of the Apes movies. I love all the Planet of the Apes movies, but that trilogy, I know he didn't direct the first one, but those back two, holy crap! Who thought that reinvigoration of a long dormant franchise in that kind of way could happen? And I am so excited to see what the next trilogy is going to bring. And I really hope that Andy Serkis I hope they let him go to town. He made Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage. Give him one of those ape movies, man, with like Matt Reeves producing, since he's all like balls deep in Batman and whatnot. But Batman, you need that element. And that's the other thing too. It's like, it's the same tone when it comes to like, Marvel and DC in a way. What's kind of funny is Marvel, for some reason, is so much more rooted in like the real and the serious, while DC as a whole is rooted in like a more ridiculous way, not in a bad ridiculous way, but it's just, I don't know, something more fantastical, down to the names, like, you like matter eating lad, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, Plastic Man. They're just such a goofy. They're Aquaman, even has, even though they made Jason Momoa Aquaman. I think you know what I'm trying to say. And by the way, my perfect casting for an Aquaman would be to go the Batman Brave and the Bold route, have the characterization of Aquaman from Brave and the Bold Batman animated series with Jack Black with a big bushy beard as like a King Neptune style blowhard Aquaman. That's what I want to see. This is my response to part 4 of Bob's second message chain. I love it when you say it's fine. If it doesn't go on a t-shirt, if there is not a t-shirt, a Thunder Grunt Bob Rose t-shirt that says it's fine in big letters with a period at the end, then, then nothing will be complete in life. But in terms of costumes, I've always just, again, like these design choices, like, yes, I guess I have preference. These design choices have never really impacted me all that much. I do, in later years, going back and watching the Burton movies and seeing what we got later on, I always, can't help but notice how rigid Keaton is, and maybe it contributes to my feelings. Actually, really, you can really boil it all down to a very simple thing, which I just cannot overlook. It just takes me out. It's like a single line from a single movie managed to take this guy's casting in this role out of my mind forevermore. Like completely lost my suspension of disbelief when he says, you want to get nuts, let's get nuts, because it's just so Michael Keaton. It's so Michael Keaton, and it's so not Bruce Wayne, and I love it. I love that line. I don't love that line for its accuracy or whatever. I don't love that line for how it fits or how it stands out. I love it for how just utterly ridiculous it is, but not in like a good way. And that, to me, that takes me out of it. But from a Batman standpoint, I don't know. I kind of look at and the other thing too is based on like, when I think about like the costuming, it kind of makes me look at Batman differently. Like, I don't look like Burton's Batman, even though all of those Warner Brothers films are going for the superhero angle, Burton's Batman feels just more like a vigilante to me, I guess. I don't know what that means exactly. Just like he's not like a straight superhero, and he's not a detective. He is a crime-fighting avenger outside of the law, an eccentric rich billionaire or millionaire or whatever, who has invested in technology and is fighting outside of the law and is just an avenger, if you will. I can't explain it. And, you know, he stalks around. He's like the Shadow, you know, it's not. And then Schumacher's Batman with the costume is a little bit more flexible. It's a little bit more sexual. It's a little bit more, you know, you got your cod pieces and, you know, your leather buttocks, and there's more flexibility in the costume, and the choreography is different. And that feels more like the typical superhero Batman. And then Snyder's Batman builds upon the Schumacher Batman with its costume. First of all, yes, this is also my favorite costume because it's the Dark Knight Returns costume. The Dark Knight Returns is the be-all, end-all for me. It's my favorite thing, obviously. Any comic book guy will tell you that. You know, I mean, whatever. It's as common as Watchmen is. Everyone, Watchmen. Same thing with Dark Knight Returns. But that costume is the best. It's the best Batman costume. And to go from that and to figure out a way. And the problem too with Batman is, you know, Batman is like this weird combination of like dude in like a skin tight suit, but also dude in an armored suit. So what part of his suit is armor and what part of it is just like tights that is around his muscles? And it's like Snyder found a way to sort of like mold Ben Affleck into this suit in a way that combines that comic book element. It's like a comic book element that doesn't translate to real life. Like in real life, if you want to have muscles, you have to have like this armored physique, like the way he has in the Warner Brothers films. You know, like for some reason, Snyder is somehow, because he knows how to translate comic books so well, he's able to adapt. He's able to pull this weird element, like it's like physics. It's like actual physics. Like physics don't work this way in real life. And he figured out a way to sort of take this comic book physics sort of thing and apply it to Ben Affleck in a way where, as you just put it, you put it so brilliantly and so succinctly that you actually believe that he could not die from a punch in Superman. And that's what I meant when I was saying before that he is the Justice League Batman, the de facto Justice League Batman. And it's not just because Zack Snyder made a movie called Justice League with Batman in it. It's because that Batman deals with threats that are above, that are bigger than Gotham City, threats that are bigger than any mortal man. And yet Batman is the only mortal that can go toe to toe. And you know, and yeah, he's dealing with people that are super fast and super crazy, you know, super strong and lasers shooting out of their eyes and whatnot. But like, it's just this idea that like this Batman, he can go toe to toe. He is that guy. And yes, that costume is just fucking perfect. And then of course, what's kind of funny is here we have this super, you know, comic booky style costume. And then what happens? Like parabolic evolution. You go from the square to the circle to the square to the circle. We go back to something that's more Nolan-esque. And I got to tell you, I too hate the Nolan suits. I hate them so much. I hate that cowl. See, that's the one thing that I've never been able to accept. Fucking cowl. Sure, he has more articulation, but how much we lose so much theatricality with the ability for the actor to have this practicality. So you're trading practicality for theatricality, and that's why even though Keaton can't move his head, it still looks so much better. It's still so much better than friggin' Bale talking like this with his friggin' dumb cowl. It just doesn't work. It does not work at all. And then, of course, Reeves' version is a more agreeable version of that. It's more agreeable. It's more digestible. It works better than the practicality of the Nolan bat suit, and I like it for that reason. This is in response to Bat Bob number, I don't know which one it is. It's the Tommy Lee Jones. You're in response to your feelings about my feelings about Tommy Lee Jones. Yeah, man. I mean, but that's the problem with like that movie was so close to the animated series that perhaps they're like, let's not try and dial into something that's being done elsewhere that's already established it's weird how, movies are always two ways about that. It's either we want to key in on exactly what's being done in another sector, or, oh, we're going to do the exact opposite of what's being done in another sector. So it's like, oh, this is what they're doing in the animated series. Well, we need to do something different, or let's make it different. Or maybe it's a misguided, misunderstood desire from Schumacher to wanting to put his own fresh take on it, which I can appreciate and admire, but like totally misguided in that, yes, you have that incredible instrument and you are misappropriating it. And also at the same time, this is, Joel Schumacher's first time doing a superhero movie. He's done, as we reveled in his body of work before, but this is not, this is his first time, although some would argue his better time than, the second time he would step up to the plate and do that. But, I think it was Clancy Brown in the animated series, and I got to tell you, man, I think Clancy Brown would have crushed it. He's absolutely of the age to play Harvey Dent in the 90s. He already had the voice down. I mean, again, we never get the stuff. It's never like, in the same way that they would never let Mark Hamill play the Joker, even though he would do a great job as the Joker and has proven that he is the de facto Joker with his voice. They're never going to let Mark Hamill step into that role. And it's like, I guess it's probably the same for Clancy Brown too, who would have done something interesting. And what they needed in that movie, if you're going to have two villains and you're going to have someone like the Riddler and you're going to have someone like Two-Face teaming up, you need Harvey Dent Two-Face to have dynamic contrast with the Riddler. So if the Riddler is going to be all super slapsticky, then you need somebody who is uberly serious and murderous, even like beyond murderous, and just not goofy. Even like what he does I feel like what he does at the circus is very I don't know. It's not. It's too theatrical theatrical is not the right word, because Two-Face is they're all theatrical and over the top in their capers. But his setup, I mean, his gag was more of a Joker gag, or more of a, it was once again, it was something that Cesar Romero Joker would have done, dressing up as the big top guy, whatever, the circus conductor, man, what do you call that guy? The guy who runs the circus, the conductor, no, not the conductor, whatever, the announcer, and with the top hat and everything, and the big bomb. It just wasn't, that wasn't, I don't know, that wasn't very Two-Facey, if you ask me. So yeah, it's just one of those things, man, just one of those things. So this is in response to part 6 of Bat Bob from Tuesday at 6:46 p.m. And, the thing about that scene I guess, first of all, I really like what you said, actually, about the Burton, how Burton just lets the detective, he doesn't care, and he lets it happen in the background. We do get little snippets, like, for instance, when there's a throwaway line about, like, we found the antidotes for the right combination of chemicals, in the supermarket. Like, it's funny, the Joker's plan of terrorism with the supermarket products for the Smilex gas is actually quite insane and chaotic and mayhem driven, like in a really interesting sort of cinematic way. Like, I mean, the dude is poisoning random supermarket products that when you put into the right combination poison you to death. I mean, what an interesting concept. That's literally nothing more than like an offhanded, just, by the way, this is what he's doing in a supermarket. Like, it's not communicated like entirely well, like a little bit from, I don't know, it's been a while since I've watched it. I think it's mentioned in like some newscast or something, but it's not like in the front of my mind. It's just one of many sort of things that there's happening in this movie where really nothing seems to happen at all, in fact. And I don't say that in a bad way. I just mean, like, when you really sum up, like, do like a summary surmisation of what the first Batman is about, and it's very sort of just straightforward and plain. But to digress back to what you were saying about, you know, the detection, it's like there's this throwaway line about like, oh, we figured out the right like antidote for blah 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 blah. And you know, if it was like a Nolan, if it was one of the Nolan movies, that would have been like a central MacGuffin, you know. And you're right, man. It's just kind of like it's kind of it's a great case study of like, look, just establish the thing without explaining it. Just have him in a cave, okay? Because he built the cave. Why is he in a bat cave? Because at some point he built the bat cave. That's it. It's that simple. It's like there's nothing more to it. And we don't tell stories like that, or you know, filmmakers don't tell stories like that anymore. And it really is sort of in the same way that they don't tell stories like they used to in the 60s and 70s. I mean, that was just such a that was a product of its time in that kind of way. And then, you know, Batman Forever kind of pushes it to one degree where it's like you call it a crumb, but I say that it's, yeah, I mean, yes, it's a crumb, but it's a crumb of that whole concept that you just said. It's like a cheeseburger of that crumb. And I don't mean to use cheeseburger because you guys use that in the show. The first word that came to my head, you know, in the idea that like, here's like the obligatory detective scene because Batman is a detective and reminds us that he's a detective. And it's a fun scene. It's a fun scene because we're seeing all these puzzles getting left, you know, throughout the movie. And now here he is, you know, consolidating them all. He realizes that he needs to come and save the day as Batman and stop the Riddler and Two-Face. But first he's got to do some detecting. And it you know, the scene is just, it's put at such a good part in the movie, you know, where he's now rallying to come back as Batman because he chooses to be, not because he has to be, you know. And that was my big problem with the Nolan Batman, is that, like, you know, this idea that like that Batman doesn't want to be Batman. I think Batman either knows he has to be Batman or chooses to be Batman. And, you know, as you know, as you said too, you know, Batman is obsessive. He can never stop being Batman. That's why it's called Batman Forever. You know, that's what the title is. You know, and that's why, going back to my previous point, not to unravel that whole thing again, but just to simply say that, like, that's why it feels more elevated for me than, say, what's going on with Batman in the Burton movies, because Batman is literally choosing to be Batman Forever, whereas, you know, it gives him some inner pathos that is unseen. And then lastly, I'll say this about the not having an origin story for Batman in Burton. He's just established as Batman, yes, but he is established, or he is given the origin story. It's just in the flashback, as you said, it's just a flashback. But that's all it needs to be. You know, it's like every superhero movie that we have, even the Batman ones, the Marvel ones, all of them, we have to go through this it's right, it's like we have to go through this elaborate origin story for why they're choosing to be a hero. They can't just be the hero. You know, it's like we need to see the establishment of all this stuff. And it's kind of like, in a way, wouldn't it be so much more engaging if it's like, oh, you want to know how he became a hero? Read the fucking comic book. So read the comic book, read some comics, and then jump into the movie knowing who this guy is, and then you can just enjoy it in the same way that, you know, audiences had to, really, with, you know, Tim Burton's Batman. So I can't believe this. I just recorded a whole 5-minute response to your final thing, and something happened. It didn't send, I guess. I don't know what happened. Hold on. Wait, maybe it did.
We can print on hats.
Wow, no, it didn't. It did not send. That is such a bummer. Basically, this is going to be a much less passionate rehashing of what I just said. But basically, yeah, to answer your question, what would Joel Schumacher's Batman '89 look like? It would look like something even further to the left or right of whatever Batman and Robin is, like on that side of the spectrum. It would be almost touching or maybe even further past Batman 66. It would be on something like that. You need Tim Burton's iron framework for Joel Schumacher to grow his poison ivy on top of, it just, and that's the thing about Burton's Batman, as it's Beatles, man. And that's a colloquialism that, I use for greatness, man. Burton's Batman is Beatles, man, straight up. And yes, it informed so much in the 90s, as you said. And, that's the thing about Burton in general. He is all style and very little substance. There is some substance, like look at Ed Wood is full of substance, even though he didn't write Ed Wood or didn't have anything to do with that. Nightmare Before Christmas has great substance to it, even if it's simple substance. There's substance there. Typically, anything that's kind of like an original Tim Burton sort of film is going to have substance. Case in point, Edward Scissorhands and Beetlejuice. But it's like when Tim Burton is generally given something else, he's so focused on the style. He's so focused on the visual aspects of making the visual aspects with his own sort of imprint that it's like the details are not important. He's fascinated and he sort of latches on to the most fantastical aspects that ignite passion within him. And that's what he concerns himself with. And that's where that's almost like the focal point of his storytelling instead of actual storytelling. And as a result, sometimes, it's subjective, but the storytelling suffers greatly. And, with Burton's Batman, it's, listen, you actually have kind of convinced me otherwise in this pastiche of musings that perhaps I have not really properly thought about how Burton is doing it. And he is, not being the whole thing about him not being concerned about the detective aspect and just having it there in the background off screen. And, maybe that's what it is, that the substance is almost doing its own work. It works for itself. It doesn't need a boost from Burton. So Burton doesn't touch it. And he then focuses on like Gotham City needs a Burton boost. And the truth is, man, there's no greater Gotham City than Burton's Gotham City. It's the best Gotham City. I don't think it will ever be matched. It is so perfect, especially in Batman Returns. I think it's perfect, man. And then I love Schumacher's Gotham City. It's funny how you were talking about bat suits. I think about like Gotham City. I love Schumacher's interpretation of Burton's Gotham City is just, again, it's the vines. It's like vines growing on an iron framework. And he's like, oh, well, there are these giant like Greco-Roman statues. And there's this giant, these crazy bridges, building to building bridges. And just like all this insanity, man. And then injecting it with color. He's like, okay, let's not just keep everything like gray, black, white, dark browns. Let's like inject some neon green and some fuchsia and bring it to life. And it's beautiful, man. It's so beautiful when he does that. And it really does. And really, I fucking love Schumacher, man. I just do. I really do. I really appreciate it. And again, that speaks to that whole thing too about, the theatricality aspects based on his background and whatnot. I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, I think that it would, it would be Burton, Joel Schumacher's 1989 Batman would be like a fish without any bones in it. No, it would be a human without a skeleton inside. It would just be mush, man. It just wouldn't be able to stand or walk. It needed Burton, Joel Schumacher's Batman runs because Tim Burton's Batman walks, and Tim Burton's, and not just walks, but opens the door from which you can step outside and go for a walk down the sidewalk. So, and I'm trying to think, what else did you say in your last thing? I can't believe my voice memo got deleted. That's so annoying. You were also you were just gushing about Burton. Yeah, man, he's great. I've seen every Burton film there is. Like I'll go to every Burton film. Although I didn't see that whatever, the one that's like the X-Men school. I didn't see that one. I don't know. I'm very excited. I heard that he might be doing Beetlejuice 2 with Jenna Ortega, and I will jump all over that. Happy to watch that. That would be a lot of fun, especially if Michael Keaton and Winona Ryder are indeed coming back. She's going to play Lydia's daughter, apparently. That would be cool. She'd make a great Catwoman, Jenna Ortega. I'd love to see her as Catwoman. What's her face was good too, though. Zoe Kravitz was great as Catwoman.
Yeah, responding to your comments on The Dark Knight. The thing about The Dark Knight that was earned and did deserve an Oscar was Heath Ledger. Heath Ledger is unquestionable. We both agree there. If anyone disagreed with that, I would just question them as a human being. But you know what? If I've never said this, I don't know if I've ever said this on your show or your YouTube channel, but you know what I hate the most outside of the horrific, abhorrent, disgusting Batmobile and Bat suit design of Christopher Nolan? Do you know what I hate most? Is Lucius Fox, a character I did not like in the comics, and Morgan Freeman. It's not his performance that's bad, because he does deliver, and Morgan Freeman always delivers in performance. But like Nolan's Batman doesn't do fuck ass shit. Like Lucius Fox does all the things. He basically builds Batman's life. He's responsible for everything. And then you have in this franchise, Lucius Fox does all the shit. And then Batman quits for 8 fucking years. Like, are you fucking serious? Like, I can't even, it's like astounding what that Batman is. He's pathetic. He's kind of shit. And he barely did anything, really. I don't know. And yeah, The Dark Knight being considered like the godfather of comic book movies just annoys the shit out of me. It's that what about that boat scene? I get what they were trying to do with the boat scene thematically, but my God, what a bloated fucking nightmare mess. Oh, it always angered the shit out of me. And then if I could just complain about one small little nitpicky thing. I hate the scene where Bruce Wayne falls out of the skyscraper and with Gyllenhaal, and they land on a taxi and survive completely. And I've said this before, but like that scene to me is proof that like you can't be realistic, and because like the Nolan trilogy isn't like grimdark. It's like, what if Batman was in the actual real world? You can't sell me that as the premise and then have Batman survive jumping out of a high-rise skyscraper window, landing directly onto a taxi cab, and being generally fine. Like, if that happened in the the Go Hingleverse, or in even Zack Snyder's Batman, I would believe it or not believe it. I would just be like, yeah, fine. Fine. His armor protected his internal organs from getting damaged. Whatever. But like in the Christopher Nolan universe, Batman should not be able to survive that fall. He should not be able to survive. It anchors the living shit out of me. I know it's just a movie, but the movie's actual selling point is it's Batman as if it were in the real world. That's the entire endeavor that whole franchise is. And yet he survives that fall. It angers me so much. I can't stand it. Anyway, I'm going to keep listening. Look, I get what you're saying about the you want to get nuts, let's get nuts line, but I actually never read that as him doing it genuinely. I always read it as Bruce Wayne realizes he was in a spot, and he was actually, he doesn't have his suit on, he doesn't have his Batman shit. He was actually trying to freak them out in that moment and maybe get a moment of like surprise out of it or something. It was a last ditch effort. It is Michael Keaton, so it does sound very Michael Keaton, and it totally, I get what you're saying about it feeling like Michael Keaton, but also Michael Keaton is playing Bruce Wayne. He is Michael Keaton. So yes, I get what he's saying, but I felt like it was almost a failed tactical thing with Batman trying, like with Bruce Wayne, like he literally was in one of the worst spots he's ever been in there. He's like, I'm cornered. They've got me. They've got a gun on me. Let me try to scare them, because Batman's whole thing is fear, and his last ditch effort in that moment was what's the only thing I can do to instill fear here? I can pick up this fire poker, smash something, and scream. And that's what he did. That was a tactical move, in my opinion. Regardless, it's a great fucking line, so we're not going to agree on it. As far as the Burton Batman suit, like I said, I do love it. I understand the neck thing, but I think the silhouette of it and how it looks posing wise, it just looks great. Filling in that area between his neck and his shoulders really adds to the menace, and it adds to the silhouette. And Batman, to me, needs to look right before he needs to do anything else. And I'm going to say this, and it's going to disappoint you, but, in the latter years of my life, The Dark Knight Returns holds less water for me now. Frank Miller generally holds less water for me now. I understand that it's Watchmen level beloved, but I think other people have come around a little bit to where I am with it, whereas it's really well written and structured and everything, but also Frank Miller is a fascist fucking moron, and also as a Superman fan, I hate that it's considered anywhere near canon or anything like that, because the Superman in that comic book is not Superman. Frank Miller doesn't understand Superman. In fact, his understanding of Superman makes me want to just straight up say fuck Frank Miller. Like, literally, if I could punch Frank Miller in the face, it would be for that reason, because like I just hate how he views Superman and all that stuff. So my love affair with The Dark Knight Returns died as I matured as a human being and as I got mentally healthy, as did my absolute and total love of Batman. I still like Batman. I'm not a Batman guy, as you know, but I was more a Batman person when I was younger. This seems like it's insulting to you or anyone that loves Batman. It's not. I'm not insulting anyone. I'm just saying part of my own personal growth as a human being has only amplified my love of Superman and has muffled my love of Batman and absolutely just crushed a lot of my love for Frank Miller. So yeah, The Dark Knight Returns was great. I don't know if it's for me anymore, and I absolutely fucking hate the ending with him fighting Superman. I want you to know it was me, Clark. I fucking hate it. I don't know. Frank Miller is such a goddamn fascist piece of moronic shit. Yeah, he could write, but you know what? I would point to The Spirit. Go watch The Spirit. It's so awful, it calls into question everything he ever did. God, The Spirit was terrible. I think that Snyder's Batman suit is so goddamn good, and obviously, as I've said here already, but like what angers me is that people that hate Snyder don't even give him credit for that. I feel like even if I detested everything Snyder did, and I've told you, like I've admitted here, that I am a fan of his work, but I'm a fan of his 3 DC movies because they are Zack Snyder movies, but as a comic book fan, I am not a fan of them. But I'm a fan, as we use the term, I am a fan of their moviness. So, I have my problems with his portrayals of these characters, but it's insane to me that even if you hate how he portrayed Batman, how can you stand there and not be like, that suit is incredible? You know, how can you stand there and not acknowledge how just great Batman looks? Aesthetics are important with comic books, Jeff. I think this is something that a lot of people don't talk about enough. But I think a lot of people shit on Marvel for how bad some of their movies might look. But you know what I mean? Like it's. I think that the aspect of comic book movies that Snyder at least does hold up is the visuals. And like, you know, comic books are a visual medium in their source material. You can't really argue that Snyder wasn't at least achieving that in his movies, regardless of the story elements and things that people have problems with. Look at fucking Batman. Look at how it's shot. It's some of the most like comic booky framing and, you know, framing and lighting and design we've ever got, maybe outside of the 90s movies. You know what I mean? It just, Batman himself looks so awesome. Just, I could pull up a GIF of Ben Affleck's Batman right now, standing with the lightning pouring down in the rain and everything, and he looks incredible. Like, are you serious, right? Like, you know what I mean? It looks fucking incredible. There is merit to that, and that does have value just for the basis of achieving the look. As just from the basis of photography, of design. Give the man some fucking credit. That's all I'm saying. I could criticize those movies constantly from the comic book fan in me, but the movie fan in me, I'm like, come on. Well, hold on. I just want to respond to you saying he can go toe-to-toe. He can go toe-to-toe with Superman if he's just breathed in, if he's just inhaled gas kryptonite. Yes. I mean, I wanted to clarify what I was saying. A weakened Superman punching you would kill any human being. But with the amount of armor Zack Snyder put Batman in, I could believe he wouldn't die from it. But no amount of armor would save Batman from an actual full force punch from Superman. I just want to point that out. I will agree though, like, the thing that Snyder achieves in Batman vs Superman and Zack Snyder's Justice League is that he designs Batman in a way that you can believe he might have a chance in the realm of possibility. You know what I mean? Like, it's if he was wearing Christian Bale's Batman suit and dealing with Kryptonians and Wonder Woman and Darkseid, he would look absolutely absurd. The guy he would look like you could literally just sneeze and kill him. He would crumble like nothing happened. It would be like literally, it would be like, hey Batman, why don't you just like stay in the Batcave and pilot everything remotely, because you're going to fucking die. You know, when you see all this shit in live action, it just brings about like so much. The physics becomes so real, unlike in a cartoon or something. And it's just like, you know, to make Batman look like he won't just crumple under the pressure of all these living gods is an impressive feat done with literal design. I mean, literal design. So just giving Zack Snyder credit for that. I mean, it's worth giving him credit. It's worth admitting that, even if you fucking hate the writing or the portrayal, it's worth admitting that he did achieve that. Batman in those movies looks like a fucking tank, and that's the point. Yeah, dude, you're talking about the Batman cowl right now in the message that I'm listening to. And yes, absolutely, that cat, the way his head looks is fucking awful. His head looks goddamn awful. I understand it's practical. I understand that. You understand that. We understand that. But the beauty of Batman is taken out of it. And that's kind of my problem with the Nolan movies in general. The cowl is a microcosm of the problem that is the whole, right? Like, I get that you wanted to make a realistic Batman that was basically like, what if Batman was Heat? The movie Heat, right? I get it. And that's a fine exercise, and a lot of people love it. For me, though, what I love about, if I do love stuff about Batman, I know I've admitted on this that I've grown less of a fan of Batman over the years, but regardless, I still love Batman to some degree. And what I love about Batman is the visual element and the beauty and the gothic style of Batman and everything. The Nolan movies don't have any of that. Like, dare I say, I don't even really enjoy the way they're shot. They're just so, I don't know. It kind of looks like, you know, that movie looks like Heat and The French Connection had a baby. And I love Heat and The French Connection are both masterpieces, but like, I don't like Batman looking like that. You know, I kind of want the more manufactured sidestepping of reality in it, and it's just like, you know, and that's the good thing about Batman, as you said, you know, many messages ago, like we were talking about the tonal scale from my podcast, and there's a Batman for everybody, and there's going to be a Batman for, there's always going to be a Batman you hate, because there's been so many Batman, and Nolan's, it's just the Batman that is so not for me in every way. How he looks, how he was shot, how he was portrayed, the Lucius Fox thing. It's just like everything about it lost. All the stuff that I do still love about Batman, Nolan ripped out the guts of it and threw it to the side. And that's my sadness with those movies, because they're looked at as masterpieces, and I'm just like, it's just like, it's so not the thing, you know, it's just so not it's so not for me. And I understand people fucking love it, and I wouldn't shit on I don't want to shit on their parade. I get it. If it's for you, no shade. If that's your Batman, and that is a lot of people's Batman, that's fine. Keaton's my Batman, and I know a lot of younger kids are like, yuck. So, you know what I mean? Like, and if, Jeff, Val Kilmer being your Batman, a lot of people would disagree with you. So we're all in the same boat, right? Like, Jeff, I need to apologize. I misspoke with the actor's name for the Batman animated series. When thinking of the Bruce Timm universe, Clancy Brown voiced Lex Luthor. He was an incredible Lex Luthor. I absolutely love his Lex Luthor, and I absolutely love Superman the animated series. Two-Face was voiced by none other than Night Court's own Richard Mall. I must have misspoke. I was tired. So I apologize for steering you in that wrong direction. But I still agree that Clancy Brown could have totally played a nice live-action Two-Face. I think Tommy Lee Jones could have been an incredible, proper live-action Two-Face. Clancy Brown would have done well. Maybe at that time period, Richard Mall might have even done okay. He can obviously deliver the lines, and he's really good at it. Clancy Brown, since we know how he looks with a shaved head because of Highlander, he could have been a Lex Luthor in the 90s. He would have been pretty good. You know, I was glad to see, you know, speaking of the Bruce Timm universe, it's nice that Kevin Conroy finally got to put on, you know, a Batman suit on screen in live action in the Arrowverse before he died. And, you know, I mean, they haven't translated that many of those people into that type of, you know, from, you know, given the 90s cartoon people that many live action moments. But I mean, I think it's cool that Mark Hamill played the Trickster in both the original Flash TV series and in the Flash TV series now. But this has nothing here nor there about Batman. I just needed to correct my egregious mistake. Richard Mall of Night Court fame, and of course the Ghost from Scary Movie 2. All right. I'm responding to you responding to me talking about Tim Burton's disinterest in like explaining things, or the script's ultimate disinterest. I think is what's his name, Sam Hamm, the guy who wrote it. You know what? You're right. It is kind of like a more classical type movie with storytelling wise, and I love it. I you know, you've seen some stuff that I've made. I'm a pretty big fan of not explaining fucking anything to the audience. So like there is part of me that's just like, I just like the audience being forced to accept things. Let me pull this out of my butt though. One of the comic book movies that I feel reminds me of the writing and execution, not execution visually, mind you, but the writing and execution of Tim Burton's Batman. This is coming out of left field, Jeff. Is Keanu Reeves or Francis Lawrence's Constantine. And you're probably like, what the fuck? But I don't know how many times you've seen Constantine. If you ever revisit it, see if you feel like what I'm saying right now holds up. The movie Constantine, that specific movie, doesn't give the audience any coddling. It doesn't really explain that much. Like Keanu Reeves as John Constantine kind of just goes and finds the things he needs to complete tasks, and the audience is in complete dark about how or why any of this is working. I mean, there's stuff that is explained, but like as far as the established world and the things that like the devices and plot devices that Keanu Reeves has to use in order to figure out the case, what have you, it's completely left up to the audience to just accept what's happening. Like that's kind of what I've always appreciated about that movie. It never, that movie does not feel like a comic book movie that feels that the audience is stupid. It's like, just accept that him staring into the eyes of a cat while putting his feet into water enables Constantine to briefly visit hell. Don't have him explain it. Just have it happen and have the execution on that scene be fucking phenomenal, and it is. You know what I mean? It's shit like that. Like there's that chair that he has to use to visit hell again, and it doesn't explain why he can't just visit hell the way he did before, and it doesn't matter because you just have to trust. You have to trust that in that movie that John Constantine knows what he's doing. Just like in Tim Burton's Batman, you have to trust that Batman has a grasp on a lot of things that you're just completely left out of the loop on. You have to trust that he had the ability to build all these gadgets and shit without any explanation on technology. I think that the reason that's an older form of storytelling is because people today are much more nitpicky in their criticisms, and internet brain has really seeped in deep when it comes to criticism. So people need to know the double mumbo jumbo, to use a script person's term, of everything. They need to know why things work, how they were developed, where they came from. I think we live in a time when people want more story to their detriment. We always want more, right? Like even comic book movies now, I mean, the whole point is you literally create a universe where you just keep making more movies, you keep making more content. But like you lose something poetic like you have in Tim Burton's Batman, or I would say just in that whole franchise, all four of those movies. You lose something poetic about the fact that you kind of don't know how all of that shit came about. And they kind of don't help you that much. They just are. Batman just is. Even in Batman Forever, he's struggling with being Batman. And still, I feel like while we know the origin, and they do re-show us the origin in that, it's still not overindulging in information for the audience. It's still not bothering with a bunch of bullshit we don't need to know. So there is something I really love about all that. It just that storytelling aspect of just trusting that the audience will put the pieces together and not holding their hand through everything. And I really feel like anyone that would revisit Constantine now would understand what I'm saying. If you do revisit it ever, keep your eye out on that, because I feel like that's the successor of that type of storytelling in the comic book movie world. But yeah, I really love that because Marvel is really good at exposition. They explain how everything's happening. They bother, like that's part of what Marvel does. Like Endgame literally has a scene where they try to reckon the time travel for the audience. Like, because it's, because let's face it, the audience is so broad for what the MCU is that you can't just leave, or they felt, you can't just leave the explanation of time travel and how it works on the table without trying to give them some reason to understand it. Personally, I don't need that. I'm fine. I also realize that I am not that audience. I do love it. I love the MCU, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't need them to say, this is how time travel works. For me, it could be more adult, less hand-holding, and I just fuck you, accept this is working like it is, and we're not going to give you a fucking explanation because you don't need it. Just pay attention to the thematic elements and the character arcs and shut up. And that's kind of something I really love about Tim Burton's. That first Batman movie is like the king of this. But yeah, that whole franchise has it. And yeah, I would revisit Constantine if you want another taste of that.
This is my response to Bob Rose's response, talking about the Dark Knight and how he is irked by it. And yeah, dude, you're preaching to the choir, as I said before. I mean, it is there's so much about that movie. And yes, if your whole premise is that Batman is supposed to be set in the real world, or what if Batman was in the real world and everything has some sort of practical application to it, lending to some sort of realism in a way where we could truly believe that the Batman of comics could exist in our tangible reality. You can't have feats of, oh, hey, watch out there. I'm driving here. People in parking lots, my goodness, backing up and not looking around. So, wow, people do not know how to park in this parking lot. It's like kind of upsetting. So, you can't do stuff like that. You can't just jump to the other side of the pond, and have Batman do something superhuman. It's funny, in Batman Forever, he does stuff like that, but it just works so much better with the tone. The tone isn't realer than real. Therefore, Batman can actually jump off of a building and fall hundreds of stories. It has to be hundreds of stories onto a suspended bridge between two buildings, using his cape. His cape automatically turns into a parachute, and gently allows him to slide into the Batmobile car seat of the ribcage Batmobile that you hate so. That felt far more believable to me than real world Batman falling and crushing a cab like a pack of Luckies. You know what I mean? It doesn't work, man, especially considering that Gyllenhaal is not armored in any kind of meaningful way. I like the Batman Forever. I mean, this is just a personal preference thing. I like that logic a lot more than like the real world logic of electric pulses flowing through some sort of fabric that make it rigid so that he can glide. To me, I love the idea of, like, as you guys always say on the podcast, the mumbo jumbo stuff of like his cape just naturally knows how to catch the wind and break his fall and cause him to slide nicely into his Batmobile. That works so much better. Yeah, for some reason, people are just like, it's just de facto. It's like a mainstream thing. I think that when you talk to more Batman comic book fans, and this has nothing to do with the source material or being accurate to the source material as much as understanding the core the common tenets of the character, and you'll find people that are more aligned with our feelings about The Dark Knight. But yeah, this idea that it is like a masterpiece and that it's in everybody's top films of all time, let alone comic book films, even Kevin Smith, sucks the dick of this movie. It just boggles my fucking mind, dude. It boggles my mind. I don't understand it.
I'm perfectly happy with the boat scenario. Yeah, it's a little bloated, but you know what? It is a very Batman. It's a Batman premise. That's totally what would happen in a Batman story, or I would totally imagine. Batman has to choose between two boats and yada yada yada. The unwinnable situation. And what's kind of funny is that it ultimately also mirrors, to once again reference Batman Forever. It does reference this moment at the end where he has to choose between Dr. Chase Meridian, played by Nicole Kidman, and Robin, Dick Grayson, played by Chris O'Donnell, and he can't save both, or the Riddler's trying to force him to choose. The Riddler wants him to play the game, and the game is you need to choose one. And Batman says both. He decides to save both. And it's kind of like, it fits so perfectly with the theme of, what Batman Forever is kind of about. This idea that he has to choose between his life, can he only be Batman or can he only be Bruce Wayne? And one has to win over the other. And here is Batman saying, I'm never going to stop being Batman, but I'm also not going to stop being Bruce Wayne. I have to be both. And it's manifested in this rescue scenario where he has to choose both. All right, I will keep listening to your responses. This is in response to Bat Bob part 2 of this tangent response in talking about Michael Keaton and Frank Miller and The Dark Knight and whatnot. That was a really good attempt at defending Bruce Wayne deciding that he's going to do his best Michael Keaton impression to try and scare the Joker, as he is in a very vulnerable pinch that he is normally never in. He has, in fact, rubbed another man's rhubarb in, and we all know why you should never rub another man's rhubarb. I guess on a logical level, or trying to explain that away, fine. It just, Keaton just breaks character in such a fallible way. It's so fallible. It's so easy to just poke holes in his performance because he just goes he's full on Michael Keaton. And for whatever reason, Tim Burton, actually I could probably think of several reasons, as I was mentioning or dwelling on Tim Burton being style over substance, where Tim Burton goes, yeah, that's the take. Let's go with that. That works. And we know that more recently with Wednesday, whether you like it, whether you hate it, whether it bothers you, whether it doesn't bother you, controversial, non-controversial, the ever wonderful Jenna Ortega was making or pushing back against the writers in their characterization of Wednesday. And these are Tim Burton's writers and whatnot, in which she just, she decided that, this is not how Wednesday would work, or how I want to interpret Wednesday, and sort of pushed back on that front. And, to great success, no less, because everybody loves that damn Wednesday show. I like it as well. And I like Jenna Ortega. So, neither here nor there. But in the sense that Tim Burton's like, yeah, that's good. that works. Whatever. Is it a great line? Of course it's a great line. It's one of my favorite lines. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. It's one of Michael Keaton's all-time greatest lines in the history of Michael Keaton. It'd probably be in the top 3 all-time memorable Michael Keaton lines, if not at number 1. Maybe something from Beetlejuice might top that. I'm trying to think what else Michael Keaton has done that would be more quotable, more rememberable. I guess you could say I'm Batman, but want to get nuts, let's get nuts is just, it's perfect, man. It belongs on a t-shirt. It's a phenomenal catchphrase, but not for any of the reasons that one would want in trying to, speak in defense or speak positively about Tim Burton's Batman. In terms of the cowl, yeah, man, it's all about, you look at you boil it down, everything you just said, but just boil it down to the friggin' symbol, man, the bat symbol, and how rigid and thick the neck is on it, and how it has to sort of play into that. And, you know, when I look at Christian Bale in that Dark Knight suit, I'm like, it's kind of along the lines of like, look at Adam West in his suit, or look at the earlier Batman, the guys who did the serials in the 40s and the 50s, and how, like, yeah, they're like on paper they are dressed like Batman, but they're like, it's like 1950s middle-aged man proportions, where their like belt is all the way up and they just look super like weird and goofy. It doesn't look right. It doesn't look like Batman. But everybody in the 50s saw it, was like, yeah, he is dressed like Batman. That is Batman. But like when we look at it, it's like a frumpy dumpy Batman, because it's just, his ears are all bent all weird and goofy, because they just were like, yeah, that's how it would look in real life. See, yeah, print. Let's do a take with that, you know, that sort of thing. And in this case, it's like the other side of that, with, you know, Christian Bale and Nolan being like, well, he would if we're doing practical, he needs to be able to move his neck and blah 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 blah. And it just looks goofy. And even, all right, let the neck thing slide for a minute. Like, let's say, okay, like, for argument's sake, okay, you want to keep the neck thing, keep the neck thing. Far more unforgivable is the cowl hole for his mouth. It's just like, aesthetically, to the eye, it's so, and this is such a small, like, minute detail to be like really like nitpicking on, it's so close to his mouth that, like, it's not a wide enough hole. It's sort of like, it doesn't exaggerate. Like Batman Bruce Wayne, he has like a square jaw, and, you know, this is sort of personified in the Batman animated series universe, even though it's not real life. You know, this idea that Batman is a square-jawed hero, and, you know, you're sort of taking away, you're not selling the cowl when you have this like smaller mouth hole. It just looks goofy and weird. It looks, you know, like the way that they say the uncanny valley in regards to 3D CGI. That like looks human but doesn't look human. There's something off our eyeball. It doesn't read as like real to us, and this is one of those uncanny valley sort of things in regards to the cape and cowl. And then as for final piece, Frank Miller, you know, yeah, I know Frank Miller is like a right-wing nutball today. I'm not going to sit here and defend Frank Miller or his views, because I don't agree with them personally myself. But this is one of those guys who, you know, we've talked in the past, and I've spoken a great deal about this on my channel, about how subjectively you can separate the art from the artist on certain things. On other things, it's a lot more difficult. In the sense of stand-up comedians, it's nigh impossible, because part of the art, you are enjoying the art form literally from the person who is performing the piece. You can't separate it. Singers, it's a little bit more difficult, but almost the same as, like, say, comedians, although there are some that are easier to compartmentalize than others. Like, you know, I know a lot of, like, sort of, what are those, like, 4chan, incel mother effers will be like, what, like, looking at, like, the splitting the logic between Michael Jackson and R. Kelly. You can enjoy Michael Jackson's songs, but you can't enjoy R. Kelly, and they both have done unconscionable, monstrous things. And for whatever reason, I can tell you that I would never, I just don't care about R. Kelly or his music, and would never listen to it, and wouldn't feel like comfortable or okay to, like, an audience being like, yeah, I'm listening to R. Kelly. Like, I would feel weird saying that out loud. Whereas with Michael Jackson, I have no problem. I can, you know, we listen to Michael Jackson in the house. The kids listen to Michael Jackson. I don't mind being like, hey, I'm listening to Michael Jackson. Like, I don't feel weird saying that. For whatever reason, him and his music is sort of somehow divorced from his actions. The same thing with Mel Gibson, who is just a vile anti-Semite, and yet at the same time, his portrayal in some films, like, it's just, I'm able to separate Apocalypto, I'm able to separate Mad Max. I guess it comes down to this idea of, like, how can I allow myself to enjoy these things even if the art is created by monstrous people? And, you know, by far, like, you know, farther down the line, you know, if you have someone who's writing a book, even if that book has, like, you know, some of those values are represented in that book, in the same way that, like, look at S. Craig Zoller's, I love S. Craig Zahler's films. I don't like S. Craig Zahler or his politics or even some of the politics that he has in his films. But yet I still can enjoy an S. Craig Zahler film. And it's the same thing with Frank Miller, let alone The Dark Knight Returns. And, yeah, he doesn't get Superman, but like that's, quite clearly, as a matter of fact, if you look at the way that Frank Miller writes Superman, you can just tell he has such a bias. He has such a hard-on to just like bash Superman. So he makes Superman, a government stooge, a clueless moron. It's almost like he has to do that in his mind. And I can't speak for Frank Miller, but when I look back on it as a teenager versus looking back on it now, and of course, we romanticize The Dark Knight Returns a lot more when we're younger. But when you look back on it now and you're just kind of like, yeah, maybe that's his way of trying to even the playing field of a god versus a man. The man has to have a godlike intelligence because the god that he is fighting has godlike powers. So he needs a manlike intelligence. And obviously, Superman is an intelligent being, and as is Batman. But it's just like, it's this idea of like, how do you level the playing field maybe between those two? And I would chalk it up a little bit of it to that, in addition to his great disdain for the character. I love the Dark Knight version of Batman. You know why I like it? Because, unlike other characterizations of both Batman and Superman, I love how he creates a really flawed hero. He turns Batman into this really sort of flawed version of the idyllic self. He pushes on all of the things that make Batman extraordinary and almost turns them into character defects and shortcomings. Whereas like he's trying to fight, the criminal element in the city, and we see how truly unhealthy his obsession is, his obsession to wage a one-man war. And, at the end of The Dark Knight Returns, the reason why I love that fight so much, is because it's like it's the ultimate underdog fight, dude. How could a mere man take on a Superman? It is Frank Miller using these characters that have been around for 5 decades as sort of like a vehicle for the man versus God debate. How can a man take on a god, that sort of thing, or how can man grapple with God, or a god? And he, as they say, when Batman, with enough time and preparation and resources, Batman can defeat anybody. In this case, he does with Superman. I could talk about this endlessly, and also, Frank Miller has sort of, he's curdled a lot more as he gets older and more ornery is the right word, and he gets more beyond curmudgeon-y. He's just, he's a crab apple, man. He's a crab apple with outdated conservative views, and, I don't know if I would go so far as to call him fascist. I don't know. I don't really follow Frank Miller to that degree. I will say this, another reason why I love Frank Miller is because he's part of the continuity of Jews in comic book literature, man. It's like, obviously Jews aren't the only people to write comics. That's not true, but like, it's just that like, he is like a massive sort of like staple of Jewish representation in comic book literature, along with the creators of Batman and Superman and a bunch others. But it's just sort of like, it's sort of, there's that piece too. So it's, it's not so black and white. And then lastly, I will say, I don't take any offense to what your feelings and your personal relationship with Batman. That's entirely subjective for you. That doesn't reflect on me or anybody else who likes Batman. If that's where you sort of, I never really, I don't know. I've sort of, there's the things that as I mature, the things that I love, my relationship with them changes, of course. But, you know, I always view it as like, this is a thing that I will always love because at a particular time in my life, it's something that I love so much. And there was a time where like The Dark Knight Returns was like everything to me. And it was at a time where like it was still kind of like pop culture currency, like you were on the level in the same way that if you were down with the Misfits and you knew who the Misfits were, if you were down with The Dark Knight Returns, that you really knew what was up with Batman versus just the general gist of like, oh yeah, Adam West, Tim Burton, blah, 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 blah. So there's that. I've sort of lost the sauce when discussing these points. I will continue on. So this is in response to Bat Bob Part 3, and this is at Friday at 1:34 a.m., part of that sequence. In regards to Zack Snyder and, you know, the way people sort of receive his movies, and the idea that so much of what makes a good comic book movie, or at least an important aspect of what makes a good comic book movie, is the aesthetic. And this case in point, to go back to Tim Burton's Batman, this is why Tim Burton's Batman endures the way that it endures, because aside from the comic book movie-ness of it, and besides, Jordan, out of the street, buddy, play on the grass. Besides, you know, I lost my train of thought. Besides the fact that, you know, it has great comic book movie energy, in addition to the aesthetics, going back to the idea of like what Tim Burton does best and where his shortcomings lie, and people just they overgloss so much as a result. What's up?
Nicholas, you stole your crown.
Oh, no. Okay. I'm in the middle of recording something real quick. Can I just finish doing that?
Nicholas stole your crown.
Okay. Thanks for the report. I'll be down there in a minute. Hold on. So, yeah, like, you know, and that is something that, once again, people like yourself find Snyder's stuff so agreeable because that's a huge element. And that's something that Snyder is flawless in. Absolutely flawless. I mean, look at forget about what you think about Watchmen from a, you know, story perspective, but like as a visual film, just everything about that movie, every bit of its aesthetic is flawless masterpiece in my opinion. Again, divorcing it from story. I like the story. I don't have any problem with the story. In fact, I think it's one of the best comic book adaptations ever made. But I'm not looking to pull at that thread. I'm just merely talking about from an aesthetic point of view. It's friggin' pinpoint perfect. And so is his Batman. Yes, and he does line up those comic book frames. That's what he's doing. He's taking storyboards directly from the comic books. I mean, a lot of comic book movies do that as well. But like, you know, it's a prime example. Tim Burton's Batman is a prime example of that as well, in regards to what you were saying about Snyder. So. I mean, this is in response to part 4 of Bat Bob at Friday at 1:34 a.m. In you talking about, you know, Batman's durability in Zack Snyder's films. I mean, but that's my point. Is that you know, that's the Batman that grapples with, you know, Omega level threats. I know Omega level threats is a Marvel thing, but it's like, all of these things, everything that happens in the Justice League is so beyond the scope of Gotham City. And there's like different like levels to Batman, as I'm sure you would agree. There's like the Batman that is in Gotham City that's dealing with like, you know, a criminal element. And then there's the one where it's dealing with his rogues gang, which is rogues gallery, which is, you know, a little bit more complicated. And then, you know, and then there's the third level, which is, you know, dealing with like metahumans on Earth, right? And then like, I guess maybe the fourth level is like everything else. Like when you just get into Omega level threats, like just, you know, new gods and dark sides and things like that. And Batman, at least in comic book form, he goes, and again, we're talking about comics versus trying to adapt that to real life. He goes toe to toe in the comics in all of these ways, in all of these mediums. But what makes Zack Snyder so exemplary is that he is, in my opinion, he's handling, I mean, I disagree. He's doing justice to that unadaptable in live action, Justice League Batman I could absolutely see that Batman. I could absolutely see Ben Affleck's Batman flying to space in a bat rocket or going toe to toe with Darkseid. Maybe not toe to toe, but at least like taking on parademons as he does in that Justice League movie. I guess in both Justice League versions of the movie, right? So like that Batman works on a live action scale in that way, and that's Zack Snyder understanding comic book sensibilities and translating them to the best that one can do, the physics of everything. And is it perfect? No, of course it's not perfect. And there's stretching in some areas, of course, and in other areas it's more believable. One thing that I really did like about Batman going toe to toe with Superman in that Zack Snyder film is that like they, in Frank Miller's book, it's kind of like he's wearing this armor, but they don't really talk about the armor. He's just armored Batman. In like when you see it adapted and you see him moving around and you realize, wait a minute, like he's supposed to be able to take a punch from Superman, or at least this armor is meant to withstand force from a Kryptonian, or on some level the closest thing that could stand force from a Kryptonian. And to watch Zack Snyder translate that in a way that kind of like works is really cool in my opinion. I mean, it's awesome. It works. This is part 5 of Bat Bob response at 1:40 whatever in the morning on Friday. You were saying to me, you were weighing in again on Nolan and how the cowl looks goofy and just why those movies don't work, and how it kind of bums you out that so many people, that you respect people's opinions, but it bums you out about people digging those movies as much as they do. Another huge example, a much bigger, maybe not bigger, but a huge side to the cowl thing, in fact, is also the use of Gotham City and literally turning downtown Chicago into Gotham City and not having anything that makes it feel like Gotham City. Like I've said this many a time, I was living in downtown Chicago when they were making that movie, and small aside, I almost was a PA on it, and they ran out of spots. I went to school with a lot of kids who worked on the movie, and when it came out, and I'm watching it, and I'm just going, this is not Gotham, this is just Chicago. So like that inherent laziness, the idea that this guy, and again, I'm not holding his Britishness against him because he's British. I'm holding it against him in the fact that, like, this guy who doesn't come from Chicago, how about let's say it like that? This guy who doesn't come from Chicago, maybe he spent time there, but just decides that this incredibly important element, because Gotham City itself is a character in Batman, just decides, oh yeah, downtown Chicago, sure, that's Gotham City. And it's just like, no, it's downtown Chicago. You're asking me to, it's like, talking about like realer than real, or trying to make a real life Batman. If he's gonna be in this real world, how about you just call it downtown Chicago? Don't tell me that's Gotham City when I know that it's downtown in Chicago. So it's like the filmmaker, it's almost like he's asking me unspokenly, he's saying, just pretend that this city that you know is downtown Chicago, just pretend that it's Gotham City. Pretend, because to me, it feels like it could be Gotham City, because whatever. And I'm sure they saved a buck or two. They're like, oh yeah, we could shoot, because, some of those chase sequences were shot right below where they had exteriors for, every time they would cut to, Gotham City, like a wide of Gotham City or whatever. Like they really use the area in the same way that Burton's sets for Batman were both, they were like these magnificent town squares, and you never really saw outside of them in the realm of Gotham, right? Like, you had the downtown Gotham in Batman, and you had the downtown Gotham in Batman Returns, and they were just these giant set pieces that were like literally pinpoint perfect, but you never traveled outside of there. And to an extent, here you have a real location, downtown Chicago, where you could go so many different places, and yet you are using two areas that are so close together that anybody who lives in Chicago goes, oh, so that's, that scene's happening under that scene. It just doesn't work, man. It doesn't work. And those movies are worse off. Another reason why those movies are worse off for it. And it just goes to show that, like, I don't know, just this idea that, like, you equate Nolan with, like, comic bookdom. It just, not you. I mean, people in general, it just kind of, it irks me. It irks me greatly. This is in response to Bat Bob Part 6, where you are clarifying Clancy Brown as Lex Luthor. And yeah, wow. I don't know. It's funny. I knew that. Of course I knew that. And for some reason it completely slipped my mind, and I just was going with your train of thought. That's just like one of those facts that just, but you don't actively think about on a conscious level. And yes, he does either which way, totally would crush it as a live action Two-Face. It would work, man. It would work. And that stuff, when they do put an actor in, a voiceover actor, they always do it in a live action setting. It's always done, and this is obviously doesn't include Mark Hamill as the trickster, in the sense of more like Kevin Conroy appearing in the Arrowverse in that kind of way. It's always done as a novelty. It's like a novelty Easter egg, winking at the winking fan service, like just giving us the slightest taste of what if. And yeah, dude, I mean, in the same way that Mark Hamill is the voice of the Joker, that Clancy Brown Lex Luthor is Lex Luthor for me. I mean, it's so perfect, man. It's amazing how even just with the voice, you can bring a persona to life. Now, it does help if you have a rich comic book history to back that up, whether you appear animated or not. But that's neither here nor there either. This is in response to Bat Bob Part 7. Sorry, cat in my throat. Fishbone in my throat. Talking about Constantine and riffing it off of the Tim Burton's Batman and not explaining things. That's a great kind of like other side of the coin example, in fact, of that same concept that Tim Burton's Batman does so well, because I only saw Constantine one time, probably back in 2005. I didn't see it in the theater, but I saw it whenever it came out into video. I didn't know much about Constantine. Constantine's kind of a blind spot for me. I just know that he is a dude that deals in demons in some way, shape, or form. I know that he's I think he started off as a Vertigo, whatever. He was in the DC universe, but also kind of not. Like, he's like, in the same way that like Watchmen inevitably got absorbed into the DC universe, so did Constantine. It didn't originally start out that way, but eventually got to that point. And I'll be honest with you, that was what you are saying is not only true, but alienated me from the movie because I knew nothing. And here's the thing that makes Batman different from Constantine. A, Batman is Batman, and B, Constantine is a much more obscure, or I would say more obscure. It's a beloved comic book property franchise with a diehard rabid fan base, but much in the way like Preacher or something, people, if you're on the know, about Constantine, even if you just know it by name. But because of that, to take that approach with something that doesn't have the same household pop culture knowledge base, and that's what Batman has. Everybody knows, even if you don't follow comic books, everybody knows that Batman's Bruce Wayne. Everybody knows that Batman's parents were murdered, and that's obviously not true. Not everybody, but I'm speaking in a blanket. I'm making a broad blanket statement here, but everybody knows the most broadest of strokes. They know that Batman is in a Batcave. They know all these things. And so for Sam Hamm, that is a great springboard to then run with that and take it, a step further in feeling like, well, if you know all of these things, then frankly, these other things I don't think I really need to explain to you because they just are, as you said, and whatnot, which is a astute observation, frankly, one that I've never really cared to think about, and always sort of wrote off that aspect of Tim Burton's Batman, as I've said in prior messages in this conversation that we've been having. The problem is that does not work with something like Constantine, where there's no, what did I call it? The household pop culture knowledge base is not present. And maybe you've heard the name Constantine, but that's about it. You don't know that the dude is he's a chain smoking guy who's got lung cancer or something, or eventually, and Peter Stormare, he takes the lung cancer away from him so that he stays on Earth long. I forget the whole thing. But I mean, like, that's literally all I took from seeing Constantine. I was very, my whole brain, I really should revisit it now, but my whole brain was sort of turned off to everything, because you're right. In fact, it did not explain any of that stuff. And while that was fine, I mean, it was fine, I guess, it sort of it did not leave me in a realm of understanding. Did it leave me entertained? I guess. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I know, if I revisited it now, it'd be like watching it for the first time, because everything I just said about like Peter Stormare and the lung cancer and stuff, and him like pulling the cancer out of his lungs, like that's literally all I remember from that movie, which I literally watched 18 years ago. Isn't that crazy to think? Almost 18 years ago. Terrifying. But it just goes to show that like there's a great case study of, hey, this really works when you have a household comic book character that everybody knows, and everybody knows the mythology, in the same way that everybody knows that Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's son. It's very rare for someone to go now to see Empire Strikes Back for the first time and not already even know that part of it. I mean, look at The Simpsons, like walking out of the movie theater and Homer spoils it in the line. I mean, like everybody knew that growing up. So, yeah, I don't know, man. It doesn't click in the same way that I would say Tim Burton's Batman clicks in that fashion. It doesn't work on that level. You need more. You're not afforded the same goodwill that you're afforded with Tim Burton's Batman. You're not, and therefore you need to, I think, serve up more, or the movie should have served up more than it did. And that, the movie clearly didn't give a fuck in the same way that Tim Burton's Batman didn't give a fuck. And frankly, maybe that shows, because that movie does have a cult following, and people are always thirsty for the sequel. And I believe there's a sequel coming. I hope they bring Peter Stormare back, because I can never get enough of Peter Stormare.
Okay, I'm responding. This is my last batch of responses, because Jeff, this we got to end this so that it can be a thing. I'm responding to your first comment from this last batch, and I'm still listening to it, but I wanted to respond here. Yes, the reality and tone of the Go Hingleverse. Just calling it Hingleverse sounds so much better than Go Hingleverse. But anyway, whatever. The 90s Batman movies have a tone where you're allowed to believe these great feats of strength, like Catwoman surviving the fall from the building. I would say even something like Batman having a Batarang that can, remember in Batman Returns when he programs the Batarang to fly around the circle of people and hit them all in the head, and then it comes right back to his hand? It's absolute nonsense. But in the tone of that movie, it's absolutely fine. In the tone of Batman Returns, Danny DeVito as the Penguin having a helicopter, having like a go-go helicopter umbrella that actually picks him up and, flies him away. It's fine. It doesn't make any sense, and obviously that thing wouldn't work, but who gives a shit? That's the tone of those movies. And, same thing with what you said in Batman Forever. Same deal. Those things work because of the movie's tone. Christopher Nolan does, because of the check that he tried to cash in that franchise, does not have the money to cover those types of feats, because they just don't make sense in that world. And it totally annoys me. But in the Zack Snyder universe, or even in the Batman, which has a little bit, it's more heightened than Nolan is, I can give a little leadway to feats that don't make any sense to me. I can deal with Superman punching Batman, a sickened Superman punching Batman and him not having like a completely destroyed spine, or I can live with some of the stuff that Pattinson goes through that I found a little bit ridiculous, but whatever. It's fine. I think it's in the Pattinson one. It's when I think I said it on my podcast, when he swings from the parachute and he slams into the bridge or whatever that was. It's like he would be dead, but it's fine because the movie's a touch bit ridiculous. It's not Nolan. It's so I can deal with it. But yeah, with Nolan, no, dude, you put all of this effort into creating something real, and then you have stupid shit in there like that. You can't do Dark Knight Rises where Batman breaks his fucking back and then a couple scenes later his back is healed. You can't do that. In that reality, I'm sorry, you've made it so. You have to explain to me how a human back has been healed that quickly. It doesn't make sense because of the tone that you chose. Okay, this is my continuing response. I'm now listening to. I can't. It's so hard to like track what I'm responding to. I am responding to you responding to me saying the thing about Frank Miller. I think you misunderstood what I was saying. I'm not saying I dislike Frank Miller because he's a fascist conservative asshole. I mean, I do dislike all that stuff about him, as you said too. But what I'm saying to you is I find The Dark Knight not that good anymore as a grown adult who has grown past it. Especially as someone who I realize it takes place in its own universe where the characters aren't the main continuity characters. I understand that, but I kind of don't even like it with that framing. It's well written and executed and the artwork is beautiful, but the understanding of those characters literally disgusts me. The way that Frank Miller views Superman literally, like, I find it abhorrent. And I find his understanding of it abhorrent. I find his understanding of Batman abhorrent. It's not the fact that I'm like saying I'm canceling, Frank Miller and I can't enjoy his work anymore. I'm saying his work has not grown up with me. I am past it now. That specific work, I can live with Sin City and stuff because it's whatever. But like that doesn't matter. But like what he did in The Dark Knight Returns, it no longer speaks to me. I no longer find it interesting or anything. It's a desecration, and I don't know. I find it, as a fan of both Batman and Superman, I find it quite disgusting. Like, it's well made, and I understand why it was so groundbreaking back in the day, but The Dark Knight Returns, how do I say this? The Dark Knight Returns bred a comic book fandom and vibe where you literally had to create Lobo to make fun of the fanboys that were created by The Dark Knight Returns. Like, literally, Frank Miller was the original grimdark asshole that created that whole, like, time period. And that's fine, and people still love that. And I still love, like, hardcore 80s material and stuff and everything. I just, as a Superman fan, I just find The Dark Knight Returns stale and abhorrent now. So it doesn't work with me anymore. I give it respect for its place in history, and I understand that people revere it close to something like Watchmen, but Watchmen is a thoughtful, nuanced piece of writing that truly breaks down the walls of understanding of an entire fucking medium. And The Dark Knight Returns is a fascist asshole who is literally unable to, like, comprehend the meaning of Superman or Batman and their place in their own universe. He simply took them out of their own universe and, for lack of a better word, he corrupted them to bend around his own morals and themes, and it's just, it didn't grow up with me, and I no longer bow down to it as I once did. It is no longer a thing that it's no longer a thing that I love, Jeff. Yeah, I'm finishing listening to your message, and I realize I already left my definitive message on this, but like, dude, I hate the end fight. I hate it. Frank Miller turning Superman into a wing of the government is such a, oh God, I hate it so vehemently. It's just like him doing that, and then Batman becomes a fucking surrogate for Frank Miller in that. I understand that Frank Miller hates authority and everything, obviously, his hatred of authority, but turning Superman into a stand-in for the government and like authoritarian power literally disgusts me. It just does. Like, I hate when this happens. I hate that. You know what? Honestly, Jeff, I want to say this. For all the fucking shit I have given Batman vs. Superman, for all the shit, the movie Batman vs. Superman, Zack Snyder's Batman vs. Superman, in a sick, weird fucking way that I never thought I would admit, at least in Zack Snyder's Batman vs. Superman, Superman is acting on, he's not acting on, Zack Snyder's Superman is not a tool of the government whatsoever. I love that. He actually fixed that. If you want to compare the two, he actually fixed what Frank Miller didn't understand about Superman and did it actually better. For as much as I could criticize Zack Snyder for not understanding Superman, he actually told the same story in a much less abhorrent way, in my opinion. And, the motivations of Superman and Batman in that movie are both based on their, execution aside, both based on their goodness as people and their love for the ones close to them. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a strike against authority. It's not a strike against the man. It's not Batman being like, I want him to know it was me. Like him almost saying, I took down the world and I want them all to know. I want all the Richies to know. I want the people in charge to know it was me. That's the theme of that, is that you hate everything that has more power than you. It's different than God bless him, Zack Snyder doing the Martha scene. Like, the Martha scene is taking an absolute whipping, of course, we all know that. But the intention, I am sitting here fucking praising Batman vs. Superman, so I think you understand how I feel about The Dark Knight Returns. But the Martha scene, the intention behind the Martha scene is the opposite of Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns, because the whole thing about that scene, which the execution we could talk about another time. I think we have talked about it on your show, but that scene is literally about a man saying, if I'm to die, protect my mother, and then another man realizing that this alien has a mother, and then they have something mutually in common, then they both are able to love something. And if he has a mother who he loves and would ask to save her on his deathbed, then he can't be all evil. Jeff, what I'm saying to you right now is that Zack Snyder's Batman vs. Superman understands both of those characters better than Frank Miller ever fucking did. And that is a disgusting thing for me to have to admit. Because, I've grown to enjoy Batman vs. Superman more in the interim years of, since my initial hatred of it. But I've grown to enjoy it more. And I do like watching it and stuff. And, these realizations, like I'm talking to you right now, about how it's the Dark Knight Returns that I can actually stomach. That's impressive. And if I had to shake Zack Snyder's hand, that would be one of the reasons. I'd be like, sir, thank you for, taking the plot of The Dark Knight Returns and making it and stripping away all the themes of authority and power that were so core to the Dark Knight Returns and replacing them with personal emotions about those they love. You know, you can shit on Zack Snyder all you want, but he made the impetus for the whole thing about love in a weird in his own weird Zack Snyder way. Whereas he only took the aesthetic of the Dark Knight Returns. He didn't take the themes. And for me to sit here and say, as a 40-year-old man, I've read The Dark Knight Returns in the past 5 years. I've seen Batman vs. Superman at least 3 to 4 times. I would absolutely choose, and I prefer Zack Snyder's Batman vs. Superman to The Dark Knight Returns. Even though I can acknowledge the execution of one is way less better than the other. You know, like Dark Knight Returns, the execution of it is gorgeous, wonderful, beautiful, timeless almost. It is the artwork, you know, the prose, everything, beautiful, everything. Zack Snyder's Batman vs. Superman, it is a weird, clumsy mess for a lot of it. But in the end, what I love, what I care about, Zack Snyder wins. That's a weird fucking thing for me to say. It's kind of like the same argument like when people now get mad at me when I say I prefer the Star Wars prequels to the Star Wars sequels, and they're like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "The sequels look beautiful. They look like Star Wars. They have that tangible feeling of Star Wars, but in the end, the prequels, the execution is fucking terrible." I am agreeing with you, but in the end, what George was trying to do was something different. He was trying to say something different, and he wasn't doing the same old shit, and I liked what he was trying to say. Now, he didn't say it the best, and everything looks like it's shot on a fucking green screen, but still, I prefer them because of that. So it's the same thing. I prefer Zack Snyder's Batman vs. Superman, and I prefer the prequels to the sequel trilogy. God damn it, Jeff. Do you understand what is coming out of my mouth and how hard it is to say these things? Oh, I know you don't take offense to me talking about Batman. I mean, you know, I want to say I can't remember the stuff I said before to the stuff you're responding to, because if this ever becomes a podcast episode, please everyone know that we are like responding to each other like a week apart each time. It's like so far. I forgot what I said that Jeff is responding to. But look, you know, let me say this. I like Batman. I even love Batman. I love Batman as a part of the Justice League. I love Bruce Wayne as Clark Kent's good friend. And I love when Batman and Superman work together. Like, the two of them working together is beautiful to me. That's like my favorite thing in all of comics, is Batman and Superman working together. The ultimate yin and yang of crime fighting, of good doing is, you know, Batman and Superman working together, you know? So like, I you know, and I do like Batman movies. It's not like I don't. Jeff, I just watched like 6 animated Batman movies like last month. I mean, and I enjoyed the fuck out of them. Like, I definitely love, you know, Batman. I've just, as I've gotten older, you know, we've only known each other for like a couple years. So like, you know, you've met me in my Superman years. I got older and something clicked with me where I just became a Superman guy hardcore. Even as a kid, I was always a Superman guy. I just was. But like, something in me has just grown to be more of a Superman guy as I've aged. And that has certainly affected my opinion on The Dark Knight. It's affected my opinion on Zack Snyder movies, which I just complimented. I can't fucking believe I complimented Batman vs. Superman that much. You maybe have the most revolutionary clip of Bob Rose talking about Batman vs. Superman that will ever exist. So cherish it. And I almost kind of want to watch it now out of celebration of me just letting that out. But yeah, something broke in me where I don't know, I became a Superman guy like 10 years ago, and it's been ever increasing since. Like it means something to me. It's important to me. And like, I don't know. I'm such a comedy driven dude who is very, everything I make is very, I'm commenting on the ridiculousness of filmmaking. I'm commenting on myself and how I'm making fun of myself. I'm trying to make fun of film festivals. I make fun of film itself. I make fun of editing. Everything I do has always been a piece. There's something comedic about it, right? But for some reason, the one piece of pop culture that seems to really just like have the sincerity and heart in me as far as fictional characters are concerned is fucking Superman. I don't know why. It's like, I should by all accounts hate Superman. I should be a Batman guy because like this kind of the push down cynicism, like the satirical nature of myself should not be so into something, so a character who's so sincere and wants to just help people and be a friend and do what is best at all times. That shouldn't be something I'm so into, but I don't know. I've reserved that part of my heart for him. So yeah, I guess I got a little too serious. I can admit, like, Superman as a concept is precious to me. So if I ever seem like it's too precious, I'm admitting it. It might be, and I'm not shitting on anyone that likes The Dark Knight Returns or Zack Snyder or anything. Like I said, I'm admitting The Dark Knight Returns is a seminal work. It is beautifully executed. Zack Snyder's Batman vs Superman, the Ultimate Edition especially, is, in retrospect, a pretty entertaining movie, and it actually attempts to have quite a bit of heart in the face of all its grim darkness. And the character of Batman, when written correctly, can be quite a beautiful thing. But as I age, as my body falls apart and my mortality washes over me, Jeff, there's still a piece of me that wants to, uphold kindness in a world that isn't kind. And the character in all of comicdom that does that the most and the best is Superman, and I think that's why I've pivoted that way so very hard. And I don't think that's going to change. I think my final form is this Superman fan that so well. So thus it is, right? I think we really do agree on the Snyder versus Burton thing. Like, it's an odd thing because a lot of people are at odds with those two things, right? Like, on Twitter, you'll find it's Keaton versus Affleck, it's Snyder versus Burton. Like, those are the two teams that are fighting, right, for the Batman supremacy. But in a weird way, I think we're both onto something, that like the tactile nature of both Zack Snyder and Tim Burton are what make those movies great. I mean, I think the Burton movies are well written. That's I understand we disagree slightly there, and stuff. We both love them, but you know what I mean? Like, I think that they're written properly for that tone and vibe and everything. Regardless of that, yes, the tactile nature of both the visuals and the music of Zack Snyder's superhero movies and Tim Burton's superhero movies are what will make them endure. Like, I'll say this, Jeff. Like, I mean, obviously, Danny Elfman laid it fucking down in the 90s, and obviously every subsequent movie in the 90s still kept the flavor of Elfman no matter what, right? Like, that Batman theme is to Batman what the John Williams theme is to Superman, right? But I will say this, Jeff. Once again, you're getting all the goods of Bob Rose complimenting Zack Snyder. I think that, Zack Snyder's scores, I mean, Batman never got his solo movie, obviously, but the score to Man of Steel by Hans Zimmer is absolutely beautiful. It is one of my favorite scores of the last 20 years. And you know how much I love John Williams' theme, of course. I mean, that is Superman's theme, you know what I mean? But for all the discourse I see with the Snyder Bros arguing with the classic Superman people online, I'm like, hey, I think both soundtracks are fucking great. Like, you know what I mean? Like, like the Man of Steel, when that Man of Steel music plays, the piano music, plays, I do think of Superman. Like, for all the shit I have given Zack Snyder over the years, over the last 10 years, when that score kicks in, when the piano thing kicks in, I think of Superman instantly. It makes me think of Superman, and I think it's very beautiful. I think it's especially the piano music is very, like, it's poetic, it's soft, it sounds dignified, and it sounds hopeful. It's really good. And just like his visuals with the visuals and design on Zack Snyder's part, just like the Tim Burton, my ears and my eyes are so pleased by all of it, by both of them and what they brought to the table. It's amazing how that those two have warring factions online in fandom, when it's like the old versus the new, and it's like, don't you see the through line here though? like look at, like, literally Ben Affleck's Batman costume is the first Batman costume to come along since fucking Burton that, like, sings. It really fucking sings. And I know you're a Batman Forever guy. I'm not. I've talked about my problems with Joel Schumacher's design. I'm not the biggest fan of the high neon design or the glossy Batman costumes. I don't like the gloss. I like the matte finish on Batman. I can overlook that. It doesn't hurt the movies for me, but I'm not a big fan of the gloss of it and the ridges and stuff that he added to it. It's fine. It's fine. I'm fine with it, but it's also, like, not my favorite. But, like, Zack Snyder and fucking Tim Burton's costumes. I even like Zack Snyder's Batmobile. It's not the best Batmobile, but it's the best, in my opinion, it's the best Batmobile since Burton. Because, obviously, my hatred for, Joel Schumacher's Batmobile, my searing fucking hatred for Nolan's Batmobile, and the Batman, it's cool that Batman basically just drives a muscle car, and that's cool and all, and I'm down with the logic of it, but, like, it is just a muscle car. It's kind of not a Batmobile. It kind of looks like the car that the Winchesters drive in Supernatural. I'm just saying, like, it's not, you know what I mean? It's not really a Batmobile. It's more like the car Batman made. It's just like, he's driving this, and it's like, I took a normal car and I made it super powerful. So the only Batmobile, like actual Batmobile that, like, has existed and I like the design of since fucking Burton that reads to me is Snyder. So on the music front, on the costume front, on the Batmobile front, they both really do just sing, Burton and Zack Snyder. And I wish fans could step out of their own asses, go outside, touch some grass, and then see these connections, between the two, and, like, appreciate, appreciate the synergy there of both those directors, and how they actually made some of the best Batman media design and audio design that will ever be. I like, it just like The Batman is a solid movie. I'm not shitting on it, but the costume is kind of like, it's fine, and the Batmobile is kind of not a Batmobile. Zack Snyder really, I mean, he fucking nailed it, and like, shit on him all you want, people. It's like, he fucking nailed the design. I know, and I have other friends that agree with this, who hate his movies, who hate his take on the superheroes, but they'll be like, yeah, Zack Snyder's fucking Batman costume, yeah, yes. I mean, it just looks fucking awesome. And Ben Affleck, whatever you think about Ben Affleck, whatever, but, I feel like he not only chose Ben for his performance, but something we never talk about when it comes to Ben Affleck is the dude is kind of a brick shit house. Like, he's a big guy, and him wearing that imposing costume, I love fucking Michael Keaton, but the logic behind his casting was he's a small dude. He's a little guy, and he wore a scary costume. The logic is, he had to wear a scary costume to scare criminals, so it's like the logical, like, domino effect of, like, how do I actually scare people if I'm a small guy? I dress like a bat. It makes sense. But when it comes to Ben Affleck, dude is kind of built. I mean, when he puts muscle on, he looks fucking huge, dude. There is that movie he did, like, The Way Back or whatever. If you watch the trailer for that, I mean, he's like a big fucking guy. It was right after he got in Batman shape, I think he filmed it. And even with the armor off, I was like, I remember watching that in the trailer in the theater, and I was like, dude, Ben Affleck is kind of fucking giant. Like, he's an imposing dude when he, like, throws on some muscle. He's tall. He's kind of built. It's kind of nuts. And he's got that jaw, you know? You take all of those aesthetics, which I'm pretty sure was considered by Zack Snyder, put him in that perfect fucking design suit. That is one gorgeous Batman. That is like my dream of what Batman looks like. So, you know, God damn it, Jeff, you got me wanting to literally click play on Batman vs Superman. You son of a bitch, I love you. Like, God damn it, Jeff. Why are you doing this to me? But it's such a good costume. Oh my God, and Ben Affleck does look great in it. Oh, fuck. It's a shame. It's a shame. You know, if I could have given Zack, you know, let's say that, you know, his daughter, God forbid, you know, I know the stuff with his daughter is absolutely terrible. Let's say that never happened and Zack got to finish Justice League and all the stuff with WB and Joss Whedon never happened. My hope is that he would have just directed a Batman movie. The dream, Jeff, is Zack Snyder directing a Ben Affleck Batman movie after Justice League that he didn't write. Like, can you imagine that movie? That's like the perfect mix of ingredients. Zack Snyder using his Batman, his Batmobile, his Bat costume, Ben Affleck in a low-stakes Batman, you know, detective story that Zack Snyder didn't even fucking touch the script. It's not his. Somebody else wrote it, and it wasn't David Goyer, someone else. Someone that we actually would want to hire to write the script. But that combination right there, oh my God, it would have been like heaven on earth. And that combination right there, how I'm assuming you might feel about that combination of elements coming together to make a movie, is how I feel about Superman Legacy. James Gunn writing and directing Superman, an actual comic fan. That's my, you know, like, I'm gonna orgasm right now moment. So, you know what I mean? But wouldn't that have been like the absolute best? Like, Zack Snyder's visuals, his Batman, his score, him not writing the script, a Batman and a low stakes detective story in Gotham. Come on, Jeff. It would have been fucking incredible. I'm so sad we don't live in that timeline.
Yeah, I'm responding to your Chicago as Gotham City message. I think both of us agree that it's absolutely fine to shoot action sci-fi movies in a city. I think the problem is that we're both responding to the fact that Gotham and DC Comics in general, Metropolis, Gotham, Edge City, you know, God, I'm not gonna name all of them. Edge City's where fucking fucking mask came from. Anyway, I'm not gonna name all of them, but they're not of this world. Like, you know, Metropolis is supposed to look like the city of tomorrow. Gotham is supposed to look like exactly how its name sounds, the Gothic New York, right? And it's you know, we had the blessing of having Tim Burton and Joel Schumacher give us those beautiful fucking weird skylines in the 90s that are just absolutely gorgeous, and literally and they started the trend of, like, you know, I'm thinking of Dick Tracy, I'm thinking of Judge Dredd in the 90s, I'm thinking of all those cityscapes that we had in the 90s in film that were all, like, kind of dictated by Burton's fucking, you know, design and execution of Gotham. To go to just it being Chicago, it's also saying, like, the DC, you know, the world of DC is just New York or Chicago or Atlanta or, you know, LA. It's not anything different than our world. That, to me, isn't the point of DC Comics. You know, that's Marvel. Marvel should take place in New York. Spider-Man lives in New York. That's the fucking point. The point of DC Comics has always been that, you know, that's the difference, right? Like, DC Comics is, in a lot of ways, it exists a little bit outside of reality, much more than Marvel ever did. Marvel superheroes are a little, they're more down to earth, they're more street level. They're, you know, a lot of people would argue they're more relatable. DC Comics, a lot of people would argue that they're more symbolic. They're like the new gods, you know what I mean? They're all that kind of stuff, right? I think that the cities being not our cities, but being either looking up or looking down from where our cities are now. Gotham is, you know, a New York of the past, and Metropolis is a New York of the future. That's like the point. They go with their actual hero in that way. And that's something that Nolan's movies are denying us. And some people are absolutely fine with that, not shitting on them. That's absolutely fine. But for me, it loses something there. It's not as interesting. You know, I understand that. I understand the tonally, it's proper with what they were going for and everything. But it once again, it loses me out of one of the core things I love about Batman is gone. He looks terrible. His car looks terrible. He's not a detective. He doesn't build his own stuff. And Gotham looks like Chicago. It's like, dude, could you make a Batman movie less for me? Because I don't know if it's possible. You know? Yeah, I don't really have to expand on this anymore. It's just everything I love about Batman is missing from Nolan's trilogy. And it's kind of astounding because I'm a Nolan fan. I'm a fan of his movies, and I wish the energy that went into him making his versions of that character went into him making other films, because I love non-Batman Burton. Because non-Batman Burton is a very interesting auteur who makes very, you know, personal films that are very unique to him. When you see a Christopher Nolan movie, you can tell it's a Christopher Nolan movie, much like Zack Snyder. I appreciate that. I love that. I love the Interstellar. I love fucking, you know, like I can point to, you know, all of his movies and say I really enjoy his filmography. But the Batman movies, I find them terrible, and they took everything I love about Batman away, and they didn't replace it with a Batman version that I like. And I think that's the problem. He took all the stuff I liked about Batman out, and then he gave me a Batman who didn't invent anything and then quit for 8 years after a tragedy. Like, what are you doing? You know, like, you didn't even give me anything you didn't make it better. You just made him worse in every fucking facet, dude. Like, God. Those movies, man. Okay, I'm responding to your Constantine message. All I'm going to say is, Jeff, I mean, I agree with you that Batman's definitely more of a household name than Constantine, but I think that since you've only seen Constantine once and it was almost 20 years ago, revisit it. There's a reason it has a rabid fan base. It's a bad adaptation of Constantine. It just works as a movie. Watch it again with your new eyes now. It's been 20 years almost. It's time to revisit it, and to know there's people, even in the face of it being an inaccurate adaptation, think the movie rules. It does rule. I have watched that movie probably upwards of, I'd say, 30 times. Like, I love that fucking movie, dude. Watch it on its own merits without it being a comic book movie, and just go with the weird. Go with the weird. Go with Keanu. Enjoy it. Give it a chance. You know? Revisit it. That's all. I'm not really arguing your point. I'm apologizing for that. But yeah, I'm saying it's a revisit when you have time. I know you're a busy man now. When the kids are asleep, you don't have work the next day or something. Give Keanu's Constantine a chance. It's just a really well-made, meat and potatoes, oddball sci-fi, supernatural, you know, God and Satan movie. I just love it.
It's a comfort movie for me almost. Like, I really, it just has grown on me over the years all the more. Yeah, so I really am not arguing with you. I'm just I'm doing the thing that I hardly ever do. I have like almost a rule where I don't recommend things to people, but I'm recommending you revisit Constantine. If we lived in the same area, if we lived in the same state, I would literally watch it with you. But I'm telling you, give it a revisit, give it the time of day. You won't. I don't think you'll be sorry. I think you'll find. I think you'll, if anything, even if you don't come away loving it, I think you'll walk away saying, I get why people want another Keanu continuity. Like, because, obviously he doesn't look like Hellblazer. He doesn't look like John Constantine. That is the most inaccurate part of the movie. He's not even dressed like Constantine. But, like, the movie has, over 20 years, on its own specific singular merit, grown a giant fan base. And also, I think because of Keanu's popularity, that's why we might get a second one of that movie. Give it a chance. That's all I'm saying. Jeff, the last message you left, it just says error, and it won't play on either my computer or my phone. It's never played. I think it's corrupted, the last message you left. I'm sorry about that. I don't know what to say about that. But I was going to say, this has to end, because I don't know if we can. I think this has been an incredible discussion, and I think it could be just a fun thing on your channel or something, and I would be happy to for people to hear it. But it should end now, because it's becoming so fragmented, and we're starting to repeat ourselves because of the nature of how we're executing this. So I think I'm gonna say that I am literally going to leave the last word to you, sir. If you want to respond to the things I've said here, I'm fine with. You can leave this recording in too. I'm fine with you having the last word. It's this will be on your channel. This will be however you want to do it. And because Mark Zuckerberg's messenger has failed us, I can't even listen to your last message. So this has been a messy way to do this, but it's been interesting. It's been an interesting execution of a weird ass discussion, and because of this discussion, I will be revisiting both Batman Forever and Batman vs Superman, just because talking about them has made me want to revisit them. Not that I've probably seen both within the last 3 years, so I definitely since COVID I've seen both of those movies, but I kind of want to watch them again now, to just relish in all the both of them are flawed. Both those movies are flawed, but their positives are so beautiful. I'll say that. Their positives are so beautiful that I find them infinitely entertaining. So I sit here, and for anyone that listening to this, if I'm talking to you, Jeff, or I'm talking to anyone listening to this, me and you, when we first started doing podcasting together on your channel, Zack Snyder's Batman vs Superman was kind of the first, honestly, the real first argument discussion topic we really passionately got it. We were supposed to be talking about WandaVision, but we got into Zack Snyder somehow. And I think this is a great full circle moment for our friendship and life of talking about media, because I'm at a place now 3 years later where I'm I can see the positives of Zack Snyder, and I've made my peace with the things I love about him and the things I don't. And, and I've also, you're also, since you've met me in my later years, you luckily have met me in the years in which I appreciate Joel Schumacher and love Batman Forever. So that's nice, because if you met me in 2005 and was Bob, Batman Forever rules, you would have gotten a different Bob Rose. I'm just being honest with you. I'm just being honest with you. So I'm happy that we know each other now in my Joel Schumacher was good actually years. So, yeah, I'm going to let you have the last word. Mark Zuckerberg, fix your shit, because it's a nightmare. And Jeff, I look forward to eventually whatever you want me to on again, to talk in person, or not in person, live on a stream with you about another movie topic. I'm excited to be there for that. But I'm giving you the last word here, so you finish responding, and that's that. And to finish this out, all I'm gonna say is, you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
I'm not trying to start a brand new debate because I still haven't listened to your other audio responses yet from the Batman thing, which I will do very soon. But I just want to say, in regards to Pig, which you guys did an episode on for your podcast, that scene where he eviscerates the guy in the Michelin starred whatever in the restaurant that he owns is so masterful. Not just in I don't know if you would call this storytelling or characterization in Nicolas Cage's disdain for the food that is being presented before him. It's like, the scene is very, I would say, economical. Like, it just gives you just enough, but it doesn't really try and shove information down your throat. But everything that you need to know is really even just communicated in Nicolas Cage's expressions. He puts the scallop down on the table, and Nicolas Cage, he just thumbs it. He just takes it with his thumb with such disrespect and disdain for this guy's, food. It literally, and obviously, like, he says things. He says verbiage, Hannibal Lecter style, makes the dude sort of swallow his tongue with his verbiage. But, even more than that, it's his reaction. Ooh, Nope is on Amazon Prime. Nice. Even more than that, it's just his reaction to the food itself, and like just the disdain that he has. It really just sells the scene. I feel like rewatching the movie just for that scene alone, it's so good. Man, I feel like putting it on right now just talking about it. Well, Bob, I just got through your last batch of messages, and I am sorry that I don't even remember what I said in the final message, but yes, let's leave it here. This is the final word. If anybody makes it to the end of watching this, assuming that I actually follow through and stitch it together, which I'd like to, but just the daunting task of doing it is leaving me thinking, oh my God, how am I going to do it? I'm just going to do it in chrono order, I guess. But I'm just saying, if you make it up to this point, I apologize for however redundant it is. I'm not going to really spend any additional time on trying to have it make sense. It would drive any person mad. In terms of everything that you were saying, I mean, yeah, like, again, I really can't even answer, because if I do, there's so much I could say, but I'm not going to, because it does need to end. What I think would be interesting, though, let me know when you revisit these films, because I think I would like to hear your thoughts on the other end of that revisit, since you seem to have such a massive shift or whatever, like a pseudo shift in thinking about this sort of stuff. It's funny how we're talking about movies that we've seen hundreds of times, right? Not literally hundreds of times, but, just countless times, over long periods of time. And you would think that, like with most films, I see them once, or I see movies once, and I generally form an opinion about them, and I move on. And of course, that's not true with all films. There's some films that, I can see, countless times, and their meanings change. And this is, I would say that these Batman movies fall in that later view, because yes, as I age, Same thing with Superman, the Superman stuff too. As I age, as I grow older, my tastes change. We evolve, I evolve, and outlooks change. Or things stay constant, but they my POV kind of changes. Like a great example of I used to think that excellence meant accuracy to the source material, and now I realize that that's not necessarily the only component to making a good movie. That is a singular component that can contribute to making a movie good, but it's not the be all end all. It's not black and white. So let me know when you watch. I'd be curious to to be honest, I kind of feel like rewatching those Warner Brothers films. I'm long overdue for a revisit of all 4 movies. So maybe I'll do that. And I have this Nolan box set just gathering dust. So maybe it's time to just do another Batman run, especially after this conversation, and just sort of see where everything feels, where everything lies. Thank you for watching this. Make sure you tune in to subscribe to Bob Rose on YouTube. Check out his podcast. He's got a podcast called The Writer's Blockbuster. I've really gotten into listening to this podcast. It's a great fucking podcast. And it's helping my screenwriting craft, I think. I really, truly, giving me a broad understanding of concepts. And you know what the best part is? It's free. Like, some people would gatekeep such incredible information. And these guys are breaking down these films, and they're doing it for the love of it, and they're doing it for the benefit. And they really know their stuff. They really do. I mean, my eyes have been opened in so many ways. So I really highly recommend you check out Writer's Blockbuster podcast. Go search for that on Google. And we'll see you another time. I love chatting with Bob. Bob and I have really interesting, fun conversations. The best part about chatting with Bob is that we generally don't agree always, or our views are either dynamic or they contrast one another. We really are Batman and Superman in that kind of way. He is Super Bob and I am Bat Jeff. It's just like it sort of works, man. So I really do enjoy these conversations. We'll see you next time. Peace and hair grease.
Wowza. Okay. And that's it. That's where the conversation ended. And as you see, we really ran the gambit as we discussed all sorts of aspects of the live action movies in great scrutiny, with great scrutiny. And, even when the conversation started to lose itself or go off on a tangent, it always circled back to the topic at hand of Batman, and eventually Batman and Superman. And Superman and anybody who made it to the end of this crazy thing, what do you think? Where do you stand on the live action films, and what works for you and what doesn't? Please respond in the comments. Who knows? Maybe it will spark Bob and I to do some more stuff like this. And like I said, check out the Patreon, subscribe to Bob's stuff, subscribe here, and we'll see you next time. Peace, hair grease, wa-cha-cha-cha.